before and never will be, which is a pressing together of the people that are being called out of the nations back in the first century.
It's interesting take. I don't know if it quite fits the. Yeah.
When you say pressing, do you mean gathering? Is that what you're basically talking about, or?
Yeah, pressing, like when you take grapes and you put them in and press them in the wine vat, they like condense together and they become more and more concentrated.
Because I wanted to bring up something I hope we can talk about. I know Stacy and Albert probably can't necessarily comment on this, but without going into a whole different subject, but Daniel 12:1, where it says, "And Michael shall stand up." Well, does that match with Revelation? Let's see. I think it's going to be 13 maybe, or 12. Okay, right here, 12:7. "And there was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought his angels." But the question is, if you go back, it says, "And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. There appeared a wonder in heaven. Behold, a great dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, crowns," all that, "and was ready. The dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born." So was Satan cast down to earth and his angels when Christ was born, and then he came to, attack him through Herod to try to kill him as soon as he was born? Or when was Satan thrown down or kicked out of heaven? Or was it more when Christ ascended and then he was kicked out of heaven?
Satan was thrown down. I mean, well, you're asking thrown down. I mean,
he's already mentioned he knows what we have to say about it. So he's asking the other guys.
Well, I don't see how you can comment on it if you don't believe in him. I mean,
well, no. I mean, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, if you have an idea,
I do.
I mean, it wouldn't be really against your belief.
Go for it. I mean, if it's going to be silenced, then why not me? But I mean,
maybe no one knows.
The bounding of Satan, the binding of Satan, and then also the throwing out completely, and he's done for completely. Because you forget, right? He's being released for a season later. So
does Michael here that you're looking at for Daniel 12:1? Does that stand for something, or is that an archangel?
I'm not really trying to get in that debate. I'm trying to ask a different question. I mean, we went down that road.
The thing is, if Michael is an archangel and this is the person who will be the deliverer, then yeah, okay, then I can see a Satan being a figure, a persona, an individual like Michael as well. But if Michael stands for exactly what it means, who is like the Most High, then Satan must also stand for something which just means adversary. So that's the only reason why I was bringing up the Michael thing.
Right. And to me, what happened was Jesus was born, right? And then, yeah, he was started like as he was getting older, then he began doing his ministry. Satan was bound for the 1,000 years. That was when they were preaching the gospel freely, no persecution, but then he'd be loosed for a little short while. The end, right before the end, and he would do all the same stuff all over again, and then finally he was about to shortly be crushed under their feet, Satan's head.
How could it be bound when Satan took him out to the wilderness?
Again,
I think futurists say that he was bound, but it was a very long chain.
Very strong chain too.
So the way I look at it, just my perspective is Satan was kicked out at Christ's birth, comes to try to destroy him through Herod, comes up against him while he's preaching his ministry, but he always escapes because he's got the upper hand. Satan comes into Judas, so Satan's still always working here. Then Satan, still at work, influences Rome, influences Nero, and Nero gathers his army to come against Jerusalem, and they come there in 66 and a half AD, and they say, okay, well, I'm going to bind Satan from 66 and a half to 70 AD for 1,000 days. And then he looses them for the last 260 days, and the war comes in basically in the last little bit there.
Right, but I mean, think about it. If Satan, I mean, you were asking me if Satan is bound for the tempting, like how can he not, how can he be bound if he's tempting Jesus, right? But again, Jesus himself, Peter was like, oh no, you're never going to die. Like, we can't let that happen. He was like, get behind me, Satan. Same thing. Satan here is not a reference to the angel character, if you will. It's just a reference to the adversary at the moment. So
let me show you a picture. I have a picture of him, and then you'll believe.
All I need is a picture with, I need my Satan to have the long hair, though. The same long hair that Jesus had. He's got to be
is the picture in HD? Like, is it like high def picture?
I need historical pictures from like 78.
I partnered with CERN recently, and I got a time machine. I went back and got a picture.
Really? Wow. Are they sponsoring your page?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have it in a really light white. You can't see it, but underneath it, there's subliminal CERN messages.
Well, the thing is, though, is that when you went into CERN, you actually switched the Mandela effect. So the universe that you came from, there was a Satan, but then you came back in the future in this universe, which, Mandela-wise has no person.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's watch Simpsons. Is that what you're saying?
But I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like in this case, like Satan is not an angel. It's not an actual being here. Like, I mean, not like an angel being. It's not like this winged dude that's like super evil. It's just like, hey, Jesus, God gave all this to me. It could be yours if you just bow to me. I mean, come on. Who's the one who raises up a king and gives them all their land and stuff? It's God. So this guy was talking to Jesus, was like, yo, worship me and I'll give all of it to you because it was given to me and I give it to whoever I want. Right?
Doesn't it fit
behind me, see?
Doesn't it fit that Satan will be loosed for a little season?
Yeah.
To be sometime in the area of 66 or something when the Jews kicked the Romans out of Jerusalem?
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. I think it kind of does. I haven't figured all that out yet, but I think it does.
So wait, so how does all this work out? So from when is
or actually
Satan's,
maybe towards later in that? I'm sorry.
So Satan's bound for the millennium during 66 to like a little bit before that, or what?
No. He'd be bound for basically the entire time Jesus is going around and the gospel's going out, and or at least after he died, all the apostles and all those guys are going out and giving the message. They're doing it for a time there, unobstructed. But then, sometime in there, they started getting persecuted again. That's when Satan is released again.
And think of the Jews.
Yeah.
Think of the Jews back when they had kicked the Romans out. What would they say? They'd say, see here, God is on our side. This Christian nonsense is not there because God has vindicated us because we have kicked the Romans out. We have been victorious, just like all the other instances where God has been on our side in the Old Testament. So here we show you this victory. And so that would be deceiving the nations, which is not really nations, but the Gentiles.
Satan is real.
No, it was just that there was a time where they were.
Did you just say that, Zach?
Zach
No,
doesn't believe Satan is real.
You're
Just
supposed to
like
put was. Satan
I
was.
thought about that.
Uh-oh.
That's funny. No, so I mean,
just as soon as I finished that, you said that. That was classic.
I don't know. It just popped up and then it went away, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, did it pop up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
totally.
wasn't even screen sharing. How could it pop up?
Because it's your icon now. It's your like my Albert here is, like
Yeah, it's you used to have the eagle. Now you have the eagle or the whatever that is, a crow or something.
oh, now it's back.
No, I didn't. I wasn't even sharing. How could you see it?
No, like you know
You
how like if you look at
replaced
mine,
your picture, your icon with
Yeah.
It was over your icon. It looked like you were sharing.
Yeah, I
or
didn't
something.
even do that.
See, that's
Oh.
Satan.
Big brother.
I think you're a Fibonacci code right here.
No, really, I did not do anything like that.
I don't believe you.
I didn't do anything like that.
You would
the devil
never.
made you do it. The devil made you do it.
Get behind me.
I think we're approaching Chris's thing. Remember when he was saying he saw that thing on the TV?
Yeah, the 666 or something.
Oh, I
The
can't
name
remember what
was
he saw.
red. Yeah. I know what you're saying though.
Well, if you didn't do it, there's only one explanation. God did it.
Well, we're recorded live, so just look at the time. You'll be able to see it.
This is a sworn-in testimony.
Now, wouldn't that be crazy if we all go back and we look and it's actually like, I am the devil and you're worshiping me? We'd be like, oh my gosh. But
Did you guys get kicked out when that happened too?
Actually,
No.
yeah. Wow. It is the
No,
devil.
they got kicked out after it happened.
Just me. I got kicked out.
Me too.
But y'all want to try take a crack at that Joshua 10 while Rob is still here?
Yeah, let's do. Oh, by the way, Armand, what do you think about the Book of Revelation?
That's a pretty broad question.
I know, but Matthew, me, and Zach were talking about after Joshua, we'd really love to get into Revelation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm
I'd
down
love
for
your
that.
take on that too. Okay, great.
I'm down.
Write that in your copybook.
I think we got to do Galatians before Revelation now.
See, I think we agree. I think we agree on the message of Galatians, except for the detail of Paul's argument and what was what in Paul's specific argument in Galatians 2. Oh man, that's funny though.
I'm still perplexed on how my things showed up on the screen and I didn't even do anything.
Yeah, it definitely showed up. Were you like maximize? At one point, did you maximize it on your screen? Like, because we saw it like zooming in.
Yeah, I was zooming in, but I wasn't sharing my screen or anything. So obviously, I wasn't making the image if I was actually zooming in as I did it. So there's no way I could have.
Might want to talk to Google about that. They looks like they might have shared your screen without your permission.
Out for that.
Yeah, that was weird.
I don't know whoever wants to start in Joshua, but I think we all agreed that Rob
We're in 10. Yeah.
totally have to read a certain little portion of it.
Joshua 10:14. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you need to read the fun part. That's basically the thing. But I mean, somebody else can read the little bit before that.
Oh, the
I'll read one.
Sun high.
I'll read 1 through 10. If you pick up and read 11 through 20, Rob.
11 through 20.
Uh-huh.
And then whoever else. I mean, I can pick
Yeah,
up.
this is pretty much why I guess we even went to this book to read it.
So you're going to do 11 through
So
20.
I could read this section.
Exactly.
We needed you to be important. But
Okay.
who's
Let's
going to
all
read
right, let's
21 through 30?
And I'm doing 11 through 20.
yep.
Okay.
Right, and then so anybody want to pick up 21 through 30? Because I was going to pick up at least the end part. 31 to the end.
You said 21 through what?
21 through 30.
Okay, yeah, I can pick that
Yeah,
up.
and then I'll finish it off.
Okay, I'm going to read from the logos, so let me know if something's awry. And when Adonai-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had taken Ai and had destroyed it, as he did to Jericho and its king, even so they did to Ai and its king, and that the inhabitants of Gibeon had gone over to Joshua and Israel. Then they were greatly terrified by them, for the king knew that Gibeon was a great city and one of the chief cities of all its men were, and all of its men were mighty. So Adonai-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoham, king of Hebron, and Piram, king of Jarmuth, and to Japhia, king of Lachish, and Debir, king of Eglon, saying, "Come up here to me and help me, and let us take Gibeon, for the Gibeonites have gone over to Joshua and the children of Israel." And the 5 kings of the Jebusites went up, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. They and all their people, and encamped around Gibeon and besieged it. And the inhabitants of Gibeon sent to Joshua into the camp into Gilgal, saying, "Do not relax your hand from your servants. Come up quickly to us and help us and rescue us, for all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the hill country are gathered together against us." And Joshua went up from Gilgal, and he and all the people of war with him, everyone mighty in strength. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hands. There shall not be one of them left before you." And when Joshua came suddenly upon them, he had advanced all the night out of Gilgal. And the Lord struck them with terror before the children of Israel, and the Lord destroyed them with a great slaughter at Gibeon. And they pursued them along the way that goes up to Beth Horon, and they struck them as far as Azekah and to Makkedah.
And it came to pass as they fled from before Israel and were in going down to Beth-horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. They were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, "Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, thou moon in the valley of Ajalon." And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is it not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of the man. For the Lord fought for Israel, and Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, unto the camp to Gilgal. But these 5 kings fled, and hid themselves in a cave at Makkedah. And it was told to Joshua, saying, "The 5 kings are found hid in a cave at Makkedah." And Joshua said, "Roll great stones upon the mouth of the cave, set men by it to keep them. And stay ye not, but pursue after your enemies, and smite the hindmost or hindmost of them. Suffer them not to enter into their cities, for the Lord your God hath delivered them into your hand." And it came to pass, when Joshua and the children of Israel had made an end of slaying them with a very great slaughter, till they were consumed, that the rest which remained of them entered into the fenced cities.
All right. That all the people, yeah, okay, so that's weird. Yeah, but that all the people returned to the camp to Jehoshua at Makkedah in peace. None moved his tongue against any of the sons of Israel. Then Jehoshua said, "Open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out of the cave to me." They did so and brought those 5 kings out of the cave to him, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. It happened when they brought those kings out to Yahashua that Yahashua called for all the men of Israel and said to the chiefs of the men of war who went with him, "Come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings." They came near and put their feet on their necks. Yahashua said to them, "Do not fear, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for Yahweh will do this to all your enemies against whom you fight." Afterward, Yahashua struck them, put them to death, and hanged them on 5 trees. They were hanging on the trees until the evening. It happened at the time of the going down of the sun that Yahashua commanded, and they took them down off the trees and cast them into the cave in which they had hidden themselves, and laid great stones on the mouth of the cave, which remain to this very day. Yahashua took Makkedah on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword with its king. He utterly destroyed them and all the beings who were in it. He left none remaining. He did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Was I supposed to read to 30?
Yeah.
Or okay. Yahashua passed from Makkedah and all Israel with him to Libnah and fought against Libnah. Yahweh delivered it also with its king into the hand of Israel. He struck it with the edge of the sword and all the beings who were in it. He left none remaining in it. He did to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho.
And Joshua passed from Libnah and all Israel with him unto Lachish, and encamped against it, and fought against it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel, which took it on the 2nd day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein, according to all that he had done in Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua smote him and his people, until he had left him none remaining. And from Lachish Joshua passed to Eglon, and all Israel with him, and they encamped against it, and fought against it. And they took it on that day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein he utterly destroyed, that according to all that he had done to Lachish. And Joshua went up from Eglon, and all of Israel with him, unto Hebron, and they fought against it. And they took it, and they smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, and the souls that were therein, and left none remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but destroyed it utterly, and all those souls that were therein. Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to Debir, and fought against it. And he took it, and the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, and they smote it with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed it, and all the souls that were therein. And he left none remaining, as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir, and the king thereof, as he had done also to Libnah, and to her king. And Joshua smote all the country of the hills, and of the south, and of the vale, and of the springs, and all their kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord of God Israel commanded. The Lord God of Israel commanded. And Joshua smote them from Kadesh Barnea even to Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even unto Gibeon. And all these kings and all their land did Joshua take at one time, because the Lord God of Israel fought for Israel. And Joshua returned to Al Israel with him unto the camp to Gilgal. I think that's supposed to say all Israel, but it's in my Bible. There's a typo right here in this King James 6:11. It just says AL, like Al returned. It was the Israelites and Al. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him unto the camp to Gilgal. Lots of smiting. But I did want to make a note. I don't know if any of you has anything before this, but Stacy, when he was reading, he said, and all the Jebusites. Mine says Amorites.
Mm-hmm.
So are they the same people, or what's up? Because, like, I know people get all uppity when you hear Amorites. They're like, oh, it's the Amorites. Like, look at those guys. They're going to... But the Jebusites, that don't, they don't get all hyper about that. So are they the same people? Why did yours say Jebusites?
Because it was the Septuagint.
So there are no Amorites. Even though it does mention Jebusites somewhere in this version. Anyway, aside from that, anyone else? No one? Nothing? Aside from Rob, obviously.
Yeah, I have a good answer for you, so you're gonna like it. One you've never heard before.
Flat Earth.
Not flat Earth.
Leveled Earth.
You know what I find interesting is that he told the sun to stand still, but he didn't tell the sun to start moving again.
Right, he never commanded it to move again. It just stayed there for about a whole day, which
wasn't that a lack of faith on Joshua's part?
I guess he just got so caught up in the battle he forgot to be like, "Sorry, God, can you stop the sun again?" Like, I mean, can you make it go again? Like, it's getting awful hot here.
Because doesn't verse 8 say, "Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hands"?
Indeed.
So then Joshua thought, "Oh, I need to make the sun stand still to sort of help God out here a little bit," because, or what was his faith waning in that instance?
It does say that it says that Joshua said that, and that's the only time that a man has ever, the Lord had ever hearkened unto the voice of a man. There was no other day like it. The only
right,
time
but I'm asking, was it necessary with verse 8?
It's necessary with verse 8. Yeah, of course. I don't see him fearing them. I see him taking that to heart and being like, "Okay, I'm gonna go Super Voltron now, and I'm gonna not
don't
only am I
focus
gonna
on
do
the
all you
fear.
said, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the sun, and then I'm gonna take out all these dudes in one day."
Don't focus on the fear part. Focus on, "For I have delivered them into your hands."
Right, and that's why they went from city to city to city to city to city to city, and they just wrecked them all in one day. Well, it was a little bit more than one day, but it was all while the sun was still out. They were just going from one place to another.
I don't think you're getting it.
No, I guess I'm not. Not sure what you're trying to get at.
So God said that He's delivered them. You're going to win the battle.
Right.
So then Joshua says, "Oh, well, I need help for sunlight, so I'm going to make the sun stand still now."
Oh, okay.
To help out in the battle.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so we need the sun there so we can kill them all. I get it. Well, I mean, it's no different from the mistakes that we saw him make previously, where he thought that, oh, let's just send, so many guys over there. We don't need the whole army. Whoops.
I wonder if this is like one of the reasons why Joshua is not mentioned as in high esteem as Joseph and Daniel.
Probably not. I'd like to know what this Book of Joshua stuff was about, but I don't think we have that anymore because, that's an untranslated word as far as I'm concerned. Joshua just means upright. So, Book of the Upright, ever heard of it? I don't know where it is. But apparently this was prophesied in that book, that the sun would stand still. But we don't have that book. But, again, we do have something similar. We do have the whole story with Joseph and... didn't the sun and the moon stop or bow, in his dream? Same difference. I mean, you could maybe tie that together.
So this was a flat Earth jab?
No, well, not really. I mean,
no. Actually, the way he just mentioned it when he's talking about Joseph's sun, moon, and stars is that he's like saying this is figurative. This could be just like,
Yeah.
the glory of the Lord shining down upon them to be so victorious and everything.
Yeah, which means that it has nothing to do with the physical earth.
Got you. Yeah, I mean, I could
But-
see this. I could see this being where obviously I would believe that it was, an actual event that took place.
This
And
is
I think
one of those verses that I don't think flat earthers should use because it.
I would definitely agree.
How's that for you, Rob? For something you never heard.
I'll reserve my silence until you want to hear the answer.
Well, I never said the earth. I didn't bring that up.
Yeah, I'm just to share this, like, even though it talks about the earth or the sun and the moon stopping, like, once again, I can easily see that being a perspective of man versus perspective of like God, or just really perspective of man and man's understanding at that time. Just like the where it talks about over and over again in Scripture. Okay, nations from the ends of the earth, or like Acts 2, where it talks about all nations under the heavens. Even, the use of like the habitable world. Like at that time, it's funny. I actually looked up maps, and at that time, like their understanding of the world, like their maps was pretty much like the Roman Empire, and then like parts of Asia, and then some of the outskirts of the empire, things like that. So like that was their understanding, but that's how we see, the whole world used in Scripture. So I could easily see just like that, I believe was man's understanding of the world at that time. I can easily see, this idea of the sun and the moon stopping being from man's perspective versus, if the world is a sphere, then, from that perspective, it would actually be the earth stopping. But just to share 2 cents.
Right. I mean, he did say that there was no other day like that where, take it as you will, but I mean, I can imagine that would be quite a feat. And also, I wanted to add that there are some tales from around the world, if you were, as it were, stories of either a long day or a long night. So take that as you will, but other cultures have supposedly recorded the same event, but like obviously some of them are going to have a long night because where's the sun at, right? And then a long day as well. And it just so happens when you plot these stories on a map, it works out so that all the ones that are supposedly having a long night are in the night, and all the ones that are in the long day are on the day part. Interesting, but again, those are just stories. I don't know if they're true. Because it might kind of make sense because look, it said that the sun hastens to not go down for about a whole day. About a whole day. Not a whole day, but about a whole day. So, if that was the case, then that would mean the days are all kind of wacky and honky-dory, right? They're all weird, messed up because, the sun was up for not twice as much as it should have been, but just under that. So there's this like little smidgen of time. And then you remember Hezekiah. What was the sign to him? Oh, well, which way do you want the sun to go so that you know the sign is true? Oh, well, it's no feat for it to go forward, so let's have it go backwards. There you go. There's the extra time. Or, whatever, more extra time. I don't know.
Rob, what is your explanation? Your take?
My explanation. Everyone's always heard, it wasn't the sun, it was the earth, and it was their perspective. Everyone's heard that before. I would take it a step further than that and say God froze all the planetary systems: the earth, the sun, the moon, Saturn, Mars, all the heavens, because if he didn't, then the timepiece would be all thrown off, and so the only way to make it work is that he had them all stand still.
Right, but then how do you explain Hezekiah?
He just moved it back 30 degrees.
Without moving anything else?
No, he would have moved the whole timepiece.
Okay. Because it didn't say the moon went backwards either. It just said the sun.
Sure.
I mean, I know I'm picking.
But I mean, it doesn't say the sun started going again either, like Stacy said.
True. But those were 2 unique days. I'm just saying, those are the 2, like, those are the only 2 days I know of in the Bible that are, like, unique. Like, it specifically says there was no other day like it, aside from the fact that there won't be no, time like it with 70 AD.
What do you guys take where it says, so there was not such a day either before or after, so that God should hearken to a man, because the Lord fought on the side of Israel. Well, wait a minute. Don't we have Abraham saying, well, Lord, if there's just 10 good men, will you save it? Well, if there's just 5, please don't be angry with me, Lord, but if I can find just a small amount. And then don't we have Moses saying, well, blot me out too, Lord, if you're going to destroy all these people, because these are your people. And then the Lord says, no, they're your people. But then he doesn't do it, though, so he listens or hearkens to Moses, to Abraham.
Slightly different, in my opinion, because the other
Maybe
two
it wasn't the hearken.
The other two
were
were asking
hearkening.
questions. They're like, "Oh, but Lord, if there's just this many, will you do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." But Joshua was seemingly like, "Yo, Lord, stop the sun," and then God was like, "Oh, yeah, all right, I'll do that for you. All right."
He even hearkens to the voice of Cain.
Maybe it's not hearkening. That's the day, though. Maybe it's
what
the day. Maybe it's not the hearkening, it's the day.
Yeah,
there was no day like it before or after.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that the day was that he hearkened unto the Lord.
Right.
That was that made that day like any other day, but the no day like before would have had to do with the sun and moon.
Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, that also makes me see what Stacy was saying as well. Yeah. So yeah. It was the day. There was no day like it because the sun and the moon were the thing that were stopped. And then likewise with Hezekiah, there was no day like that because the sun went backwards. That was the only time that supposedly ever happened. And then again with 70 AD, there would be no time like it because it already happened. Yeah, how about that smiting and utterly destroyed? Because I'm pretty sure we see some of these people popping up later somewhere. So they're not completely destroyed. When it says all this utterly, and I mean, sometimes it says they were killed like to the last guy or whatever, but...
Verse 15 is not in the Septuagint.
Oh.
But it is in the Masoretic. So
Joshua made
if you follow it, if you follow verse 15,
never mind, that's 9.
well, if it's not there, then he's still in the area, and so then he tells, and Joshua said, "Roll away the stones at the mouth of the cave." So he's in Makkedah, right? But if 15 is supposed to be in there, like the Masoretic text is, they already went to Gilgal, but then all of a sudden they're just there in Makkedah.
That does seem out of order, doesn't it?
Yeah, if it says like it's so arbitrary that he returned to Gilgal, well then what is he doing in Mecca when he's telling them to roll away the large stones in verse 18, and it doesn't say he went there?
It could be like lots of other places where it like tells the story. Okay, well they went back, and then now it's telling the story again.
Well, they hadn't destroyed the 5 kings yet, so...
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense at all. He's like, hey, Lord, sun, stand still. Now let's go back to Gilgal and take a break. Oh.
I mean, it seems to me that the Septuagint is a little bit more accurate here with this, at least.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Does it say they went back to Gilgal down here, though? Okay, yeah, so here it is. They just returned to Gilgal. So if you look at it like this, it's just telling... It's giving you the summary, you know, the Lord was fighting for Israel, then they went back to Gilgal. That's the basic of the story. Now it tells you about the fight.
The looks like the plot the ABP has that verse, so I don't know if it's I don't think it's all Septuagint manuscripts that are missing that.
Yeah, the Apostolic Bible Polyglot does not have the Septuagint version of oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. What in the world? I'm getting 50.
Brenton?
The guy that was the guy that, you know, oh my goodness, it's in the wisdom literature, the guy that suffered. What is his name?
Job?
Starts Job. Job 2:9.
How could you forget Job, Stacey?
How do you forget
I have
Job?
no idea how I forgot Job. That is incredible.
I mean, you've made 2 videos on Job. I think you're having a definite mind blank there. We all do that.
Armand, have you seen Job 2:9?
Let's see. Job 2:9. Let me see.
Apostolic Bible Polyglot goes with the Masoretic there. It does not go by the Septuagint. So if you look in the Brenton,
Well, no, it's not. It's not. No, I don't think it's a matter of it going by the Masoretic text. It is like there's multiple Septuagint manuscripts.
Right.
The ABP goes by one, and then the Brentons and then Logos go by a different one. So a lot of times they line up, but then other times they don't. So I don't think it's a matter of them like deciding that they were going to agree with the Septuagint there. I'm sorry, the Masoretic. I think that was what was in that particular Septuagint.
I have a joke for you, Armand.
Sure.
I can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that the occurrence that happens, that the description that happens from the Brenton is the correct one, and everything else is wrong. All right, you want to hear it?
Okay.
Yes, this is a joke using a textual variant. All right, so if we read the Masoretic text and those versions of the Septuagint, like the Masoretic text, Job 2:9 and the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, 2:9 says this: Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." So from that alone, you could tell that this woman was kind of in a bad mood, right? Okay. Now, if we read the Brenton account of verse 9, this is what it says. And when much time had passed, his wife said to him, "How long will you hold out, saying, Behold, I yet wait a little while, expecting the hope of my deliverance? For behold, your memorial is abolished from the earth, even your sons and daughters, the pains of my wound, which I bore in vain with sorrows, and you yourself sit down to spend the nights in the open air among corruption of worms, and I am a wanderer and a servant from place to place and house to house, waiting for the setting sun, that I may rest from my labors and my pangs from which now beset me. But curse God and die."
Sit down, woman.
So the punchline is this. I can prove that this one is the correct one, because have you ever known a wife to complain to her husband only using one sentence?
Touche.
I freaked out when I saw this. I was given this as a reading, and I had, both parallel versions, and I had to show them that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely like at this point, I definitely like to use both, and I mean, there's definitely a lot of places where I'd favor the Septuagint, like even in is it Samuel, where that entire section about David looks like it might actually be fabricated. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but there's like an entire section that's like just completely not there. But if you actually take it out,
And
it seems to make more sense. It's hold on, let me see. Where is it that actually? Yeah, where's David and Goliath? Where is that?
Well, that's in the 151st or 150th Psalm.
No. Like the actual account.
Looks like 1 Samuel 17.
It is 17. So, verse 11. So basically, the Septuagint does not have verses 12 through 30. But if you actually read through this entire like account, it actually doesn't really make that much sense with verses 12 through 30 in it. If you just follow the timeline of everything. And I think one of the biggest things was, let's see here. Yeah, it talks about like, so all those verses about David was tending his flock and his father sent him or whatever. Well, if you look at it from like verse 11 and above, like David was already, I think he was already with Saul, if I'm not mistaken. Or basically, no, previously, like previous chapters, he was already with Saul. Like Saul had already brought him in to like do the play the harp and everything for him. But then if you actually
he's like saying,
12,
who is this guy?
Yeah. He's like, who is this guy? And it's like he already you invited him into your house and he's playing your harp and you're asking who is this guy? Like, so it seems like all of that might have very well been fabricated. And then also, I think it talks about the prize or whatever that he would offer. What is it, Abigail, as the wife of whoever did this, whoever like slayed Goliath. And if you look at it afterwards, this is me trying to remember it from like when I first looked at it, but I don't think he ever even touches on giving like Abigail or his daughter to whoever. Like that's never even mentioned. He just happens to do it later for a different reason. So like all of that, I actually don't think is legit at this point.
Yeah, it says he's free from taxes too.
Right. Yeah. It says a lot of stuff in those verses, but it's quite a lot that seems like it was very well added there.
What king would set someone free from their taxes? That's not very kingly.
Yeah, I think that was one of those probably situations where like they, kind of not David worship, but like, picking him up higher than just adding these kind of these embellished stories perhaps of certain things. Well, yeah, that's just another example where I would definitely go with the Septuagint on that one.
1 Samuel 18, 1 through 5 is missing.
In the Septuagint?
Mm-hmm. This is the part that says in verse 3, then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul.
Oh.
Yeah, the Polygon has it.
Yeah, the ABP does have it. Yeah, and so like that's just one of those, because I think let's see here.
It's also missing 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, so the ABP does actually have verses 12 through 30 and 17, which is interesting. But so it definitely would go along more so with the Masoretic. But
so it has 17, but does it have 18 and 19?
Like verses 18 and 19?
Uh-huh.
In 17? Let me see. Yeah, the ABP actually does. It looks like the ABP very well might have. Let me see. The ABP might have all of those, which I actually did. I don't know if I had looked at that before, but yeah, I think the ABP has the whole chapter similar to the Masoretic. But just given the like flow of that, like it just doesn't seem to necessarily like basically I can definitely see where the Brenton's version of the Septuagint definitely seems to make a lot more sense.
I'm kind of liking the Logos version because it uses the Brenton and then it uses the majority.
Yeah.
In the New Testament.
Yeah.
Is there anything bad about the Logos that you have found so far?
No, I mean that's my go-to when I'm looking at when I'm looking at the Septuagint in English, or really just like another, because I think I have some other majority text I have some other majority text versions that are more literal for the New Testament, but that's still a good one to use, because I'm at this point, I definitely lean towards the majority text over anything else. I still use the other one to just kind of see like, okay, what seems to fit in terms of reading, but I'm definitely a fan of the majority text. I mean, it's the, majority of text. Yeah, okay, they're older text. Well, and I don't know, there's a debate there. I don't know, there's some stuff I've seen now that makes me question how old and authentic some of those older texts, like the what is it, Codex Sinaiticus, like there's actually some stuff that I've come across that would indicate that that might have been a forgery. And so yeah, like I'm definitely a big fan of the majority text. I'll say that. Yeah.
I heard that what's his name? Mr. Anderson, yeah. He said that there was 5,600 or 5,900 Greek scriptures and 0 Hebrew New Testament scriptures. 5,900 sounds like a lot.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot. That's the case, which I mean, I think that sounds about right. I would imagine. Yeah.
Well, if you can read Greek, you can get some of these old Greek Septuagints, I guess.
Oh, that's cool.
I have a PDF copy of the Codex Reginus, but it's an 8th century text, but it's written in majuscule, which it's all Greek capital letters. And I'm used to looking at all the Greek lowercase letters. It's very hard to navigate through, but it is the actual thing. And you can actually look through it and sort of navigate through it. It has the chapter numbers, but no verses and stuff. And everything is scrunched up where there's no spaces in between the words.
Hmm.
When they use theos, though, they use the theta and the sigma or something like that. So, you know, they have like common words that they abbreviate. They just have a dash in between them or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's like the number.
But
What's that?
we can barely hear you, Zach.
Yeah.
But that version does have in 1 John a monogenes theos.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Barely.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna just come back. Hold on.
Okay. You still around, Matthew?
Yep, just listening in.
Cool.
You know, it's interesting. I was never really into, I mean, I've read the history through with Israel, but I was never into the history. I like the highlights. I like the shadows and definitely Joshua is a shadow, you know, entering into Jericho, but it never really interested me to get into all of these details about the Amorites and Jebusites and things like that, you know?
Yeah, I kind of feel you on that. Although Rob Skiba probably gets into it a lot. Don't people say all of them are the people from the Giants or whatever?
Right.
All the ites.
I don't really listen to too much of Rob Skiba.
Yo, can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I couldn't even find Jebusites in a Bible dictionary, unless I'm spelling it wrong. I didn't find it in. I didn't see it in the Brenton either, but. Maybe it's like Gabion. Maybe that's what he's talking about.
What was that? Gabion? What?
Yeah, is that what you're talking about? That's word here when you're talking about Stacy's didn't say Amorites.
No, the Gaboan right there. Those are the Gibeonites. Those are the guys that traded sides on the other guys and went and were like, "Oh, we're like your servants. We came from far off land." They lied to him. Those are those guys. The Amorites are the guys that they first like when it like mine says Amorites. It said Jebusites. And you know everybody knows the Amorites because those are the tall like Nephilim dudes. You know those are the Amorites. But
got that on recording, Albert. I'm gonna cut that out and put it 60 minutes of you saying that back to back.
Okay, so looking at the comparative, the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, the Greek is Amoraion, so that's Amorites. The ALXX, I forgot what the A stands for. Euvusayon. So the ALXX has the Jebusites. The ASV calls them Amorites. The BBE calls them Amorites. Easy English Amorites. ESV Amorites. ISB. KJV. Logos says Jebusites. The LXX says Euvosayon. So it's Jebusites again for the LXX. So I guess it's the Breton uses the Jebusites.
Because I mean, I know there's a verse somewhere that says like all these names. It says like Amorites, Jebusites, Perizzites, Girgashites, blah 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 blah. It goes over like 10 of them. I mean, to me, I always thought that was the Amorites that they went up against first. Like, it was 5 Amorite kings, as far as I knew.
I have the Tanakh, but I can't read Hebrew, so I don't know where the word is.
And I'm just saying the Bible does make kind of like a little bit of a big stink about the Amorites. It's like they were called as cedars and like, you know, all this other stuff. It doesn't say nothing about Jebusites like that. Although those would have still been Canaanites in the land of Canaan, and therefore, you know.
It's interesting because it definitely lists them as 2 different people right here in Genesis 10:16.
Right. That's what I'm kind of saying. You know that they're in a verse like separately. But nonetheless, they're all Canaanites, all of them.
Well, I'm a Blairsvillian that is a Georgian that is an American.
No, but what was your dad's name?
Harold.
Well, then no, his last name. Otherwise, you'd be a Haroldite.
A Waldropite.
Waldropite. But I mean, you know, like the Amorites are named after Amorius, as far as I know, and like, you know, all these other guys. Like, I guess Jebusite would be named after a dude named Jebus.
Jebus.
Girgash was.
Jebus is the, yeah, but Jebus, that's the deliverer of the Alabamans, Alabamanites, right? Say me Jebus.
Yeah, Jebusites right there. No, I just like to bring up that while we're on the recording because, you know, I got to put a stop to it, man. I got to quash that Nephilim nonsense. So while I have an opportune moment, I'm going to take it.
I'll put in giants here, and it's bound to say descendants of Nephilim.
Yeah, well, that's my thing. They're going to say that they're all Nephilim descendants. And it's like, okay, well, if that is the case, why spare Rahab and her whole family? Why spare all of the Gibeonites? Like, why rest Gibeonites?
It doesn't give a definition, just says sons of God. It leaves it.
Right.
They're not going to get into that debate in a Bible dictionary.
No. I'm like to dwell.
Clearly, all you have to do is go watch the movie Noah, and you know the truth.
The rock people. Noah.
That was sarcasm, people. Sarcasm.
Yeah, I guess if we beat that camel dead, go ahead with your revelation. The revelation of Stacy given to us.
Did you have a revelation for us, Stacy?
No, I don't. I don't know why he's picking on me.
You said you had something about Revelation after that.
No, you were gone, but me, Matthew, and
Yo.
Zach,
Okay, I missed it. Okay, my bad.
we all talked about, you know what, we'd really like to go through Revelation. I haven't looked at Revelation in depth for about a year. It's been a couple of years for Matthew. Zach's on board with it, so that was the reason why I was asking Armand, because there's really no need to even take a vote if we're all pretty much wanting to go to Revelation next.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So you didn't have a question. You just wanted to pick that as the next book.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, did you want to start right now?
Was there anything else in Joshua that you saw?
No, I mean, the rest of Joshua is pretty much just like him. It's just like, more massacres and more stuff. And then, Caleb gets his land and all that and stuff like that.
Yeah, but if there's any more like foreshadows and stuff like that, I'd love to look at it. But if it's just kill this person and slaughter that person, I'm going to start going back to my Gnostic roots and think this is the Old Testament God that's the demiurge, and I don't really kind of want to go there at the moment.
Right? No. I mean, there's stuff about like the borders, and they give like Caleb a portion of his land according to his conquest, and they split up like Manasseh, and they make the borders as Joseph. Like they set up all the borders, and they set up a tabernacle at Shiloh. And...
This is a good question. I don't know how to answer it, but is Joshua or where is Joshua quoted in the New Testament?
Not really. I don't think.
Yeah, he quoted for if Joshua said this, or is that just if the Lord said this to Joshua in Hebrews 4?
Hebrews 4.
Yeah, that's the part. That's the part where the angel comes, right? And he's like, "Yo, I'm the captain." I mean, they might quote that part, but that was showing Christ, as far as I'm concerned, not because Joshua was there.
I see in verse 8, for if Joshua had given them rest, then he would not have spoken afterwards of another day.
Yeah, that's the one isn't that the one that gets yeah, that's the one that where the King James people say that no, Jesus is the right interpretation, Joshua is the wrong interpretation. But most scholars would say King James made an error there.
King James says Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Wow. I never knew that.
There you go. That just absolutely blows the King James only. It just crushes them. That one verse, like, really? You really think he's talking about Jesus?
Well, in the sense, it's Joshua is like the foreshadow.
Yeah, but why would they call him Jesus, right?
Okay, do they call him Jesus in the book?
Name.
Right, but do they call him Jesus in the book of Joshua, or is it called Joshua in the King James?
No, it's just
called Joshua.
Yeah, it's Joshua. Obvious, it's Jesus, and
Yeah, but it's not Jesus until they started writing in Greek.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same name. So, like, technically, the book of Joshua is the book of Jesus.
I don't know about that. It doesn't even sound right.
What do you mean?
In other words, like, we know it's
the same name.
We know it's the same name translated, but
Yeshua.
Yeah,
but he would be known. Sure. I mean, even we call Joshua. We speak English, and we don't call Joshua Jesus.
No, it's because it's translated from Hebrew. It goes from Hebrew to English. But
So in other words,
Jesus comes from Greek. It goes from Greek. It goes
Right.
to, the Hebrew, Greek, English.
Right, but my
so the
point.
Hebrew, right? But the Hebrew word is the same, and the Greek word
is the same.
is the same. But what we do is we take Joshua from the Old Testament and we use the Hebrew form and the sort of anglicize it. But as far as the New Testament, when we see the same
Greek.
word, we take the Greek form and then we put it in English.
Exactly. That's the difference. So that's how you could see how the King James, translators definitely made a mistake. You just got done translating like a whole bunch of Jesus into Jesus, and then you see that name again, and you're like, oh, Jesus, not realizing, I guess, the context of who because you got to think about it. I remember what being in school and just like kind of like having to copy notes really quick, and you're just like copying off something. You're just like writing what you see. You're not even really like paying it, like you're just going with it, just writing stuff down. So I could imagine you see Jesus and you go Jesus and you just keep going. That's obviously how the mistake happened.
I wonder if the Bishop's Bible says Jesus or Joshua, because they were going by it, and only when it varied would they use the manuscripts to make the King James. Do you have that by chance, Rob, the Bishop's Bible?
I'm looking here. It doesn't look like it. I might have it over here. I don't know. It's probably...
You don't have one on your Bible software program?
Not the Bishop's Bible, I guess.
I'm downloading it now.
Okay.
I'm downloading it now, so it'll take a minute. The Bishop's Bible says, for if Jesus had given them rest, then would not afterward have spoken of another day. So it says Jesus here. So they got it from the Bishop's Bible.
So what does the Bishop's Bible say?
Jesus.
So you're actually looking at like the Greek?
No, I'm looking at the English. IESUS in English letters. And it's written in old 15 something English. So if is YF, for if YF, Jesus had given, because back then the V was a U and the U was a V. So given is GEUEN.
Gotcha.
That's why when Albert wants to like read that old King James, he like really has a hard time and stuttering, because you have to get used to the way that their letters change. Not
only that, but the way that they speak it. Sometimes they gotta speak it as though the
they're Elmer Fudd or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it says Jesus. So I mean, again, it's like the same thing. If you go look at the book of Joshua and Septuagint, guess what the book's called? Jesus.
Oh, let me see what the Bishop's Bible says in for the book of Joshua. Where's Joshua first mentioned?
Probably like Numbers, maybe.
Yeah, he's mentioned when we go to spy out the land for the first time. Pretty sure.
Hold on, I was in Jonah.
Oh wow, much earlier. Oh.
Yahshua, Iosuah. So the Bishop's Bible calls him Yahshua.
Yeah. So again, they're getting that from the Hebrew.
Ye son of Nun. Moises minister, saying, Moises, my servant, which is servant, is dead.
Yeah.
You get it? Joshua, Yeshua, son of Nun. Haha. Yeah.
What's a blue, red, and gold Bible?
What's it called? Oh.
I never heard of a blue, red, and gold Bible before.
I've seen it, but I don't remember what it was about.
Is that the name of it, or that's what it just looks like?
It's King James, but blue, red, and gold. So red's obviously Christ, I assume. It says blue are the words of God.
And then the gold is the Holy Spirit or Ghost.
You know, as far as the red letter Bible, I used to really like that, but now I'm suspicious because in John chapter 3, some of those things are painted red that seem like it's John's commentary. And I had no idea before, but scholars are looking at it and say, well, this is John's commentary and it shouldn't be in red versus what Jesus is actually saying, which is in red.
Well, I mean, if you guys don't want to hit Revelation, I mean, I suppose we could just skip all the bloodshed and all the ridiculous slaughter and just go straight to the last 2 chapters where Joshua dies. And he gives like at the end, he's like, yo, let me tell you before I die, what's good? You know?
Man, I'm liking this Bishop's Bible.
Just they're slicing up the land, and they're just like giving all the people different land plots, and then they finally give Joshua a land plot, and they split it all up. You know, that's really all they're doing.
Okay, so in Joshua 23 verse 1, is this the fulfillment of the covenant that was promised before? And it came to pass a long season after that the Lord had given rest into Israel from all their enemies round about, that Joshua waxed old and was stricken in age.
Right, yeah. So this is like way after they're done battling. Like it's all done and done with. Like they already divvied up the land and everything. Everything's all hunky dory. They're chilling, and then yeah, you know, they're in their rest period. Like they conquered, they won. They're just chilling now. And Joshua was about to die. Yeah. So the rest, the rest is not the same like rest from. It's just their rest from having to run around and do all these battles. But I mean, if you're down, it's not that long. The last 2 chapters are 16 verses and then 33 verses.
I can read 23.
Okay, and then we'll just split up 24 in 3 sections or so, 3 or 4.
Okay, this is totally going to mess up my English 20th century, but I'm reading from the Bishop's Bible this time. But I'm not going to say cause. If I see caves, I'll know it's caves.
Good for you.
And it came to pass a long season after the Lord had given rest unto Israel from all their enemies round about, and all is spelt A-L, by the way, that Joshua waxed old and was stricken in age. And Joshua called for all Israel and for their elders, their heads, their judges and officers, and said unto them, I am old and stricken in age, and ye have seen all that the Lord your God has done unto all these nations before you, how the Lord your God himself hath fought for you. Behold, I have divided unto you by lot these nations that remain, and to be an inheritance for your tribes, even the Lord Dane, with all the nations that I have ye ordained, even from Jordan, from all the nations that I have destroyed, even unto the great sea westward. And the Lord your God shall expel them before you, and cast them out of your sight, and ye shall conquer their land, as the Lord your God has said unto you. Go therefore, and be of good courage, that ye take heed, and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, and ye bow not aside thereof from the right hand or to the left, neither company with these nations that is with them that are left to you, neither make mention of the name of their gods, nor cause to swear by them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves unto them. Wow. But selves looks like SELUES, selus. Yeah, okay. But stick fast unto the Lord your God, as ye have done unto this day. So shall the Lord cast out before you great nations and mighty, as no man hath been able to stand before you hitherto. One man of you shall chase 1,000, for the Lord your God, he fighteth for you, as he hath promised. Take good heed, therefore, unto yourselves, that ye love the Lord your God. Else, if ye go back and cleave unto the rest of these nations and remain with you, and shall make marriages with them, and go in unto them, and they to you, be ye sure that the Lord your God will no more cast out all these nations from before you. They shall abide, but they shall be snares and traps unto you, and scourges in your sides, and thrones in your eyes, until you perish from
Thorns.
until thorns. What did I say? And thorns. Oh, okay. And thorns in your eyes, until you perish from of this good land which the Lord your God hath given you. And behold, this day do I enter into the way of the world, and ye know in all your hearts and in all your souls that nothing hath failed of all the good things which the Lord your God promised you, but all are come to pass unto you, and nothing hath failed thereof. Therefore, as all good things are come upon you, which the Lord your God promised you, and shall the Lord bring upon you all evil until he has destroyed you fro of this good land which the Lord your God hath given you. When ye have transgressed the appointment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and have gone and served strange gods, and bowed yourselves to them, then shall the wrath of the Lord wax wax hot upon you, and ye shall perish quickly from of the good land which he had given you. I have a quick thing in verse 3, and I wanted to know what Matthew thought about this, because it says, and ye hath seen all the Lord your God hath done unto all these nations before you, how the Lord your God himself hath fought for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that, the Lord will sound a trumpet, and he will come down himself. And you'd mentioned that. So here is something that's sort of similar, where it says God himself.
Yes, himself isn't in the. Well, I'm looking at the New King James, and himself is not in there.
It's just who, I think. The same as who or himself, yeah, same thing.
Yeah, is interesting language there.
Well, I mean, he did do some of the fighting, if you recall the battle that they had. I mean, more men were killed from the hailstones that the Lord sent than from the swords of the Israelites.
That's true.
Technically, he did kill them.
Verse 4 reminds me of Psalm 78. Psalm 78 is where Jesus, it's talking about parables. I will open my mouth in a parable, dark sayings of old. But when you get a little further down, it says in Psalm 78:55, he cast out the heathen also before them and divided them an inheritance line by line, and made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tents.
Right. Yes.
Must be referring back to Joshua.
It is. Yeah, he took the land from them, and then after he squashed them all, he divided the land up amongst his peoples. and gave them all their inheritances. That's the part that we skipped over, all the dividing up of all the lands and all that. I mean, we could hit that, but it's boring. I'm sure there's like a nugget in there somewhere, but it's just a lot of like, you know how like the one of the things I just read was just like the same thing over and over and over. It's like, here we go through the Jebusites, and then they do the same paragraph, and then they go to the next one, the same paragraph, and they smote them all. Like, it's just him saying the same thing over and over and over again with just different people in there. But I mean, it does talk about the half tribe of Manasseh and all that, and like, certain people get their lands. Joshua finally gets a piece.
So he's this sort of mirrors what Moses did when Moses was about to die. He gives them a commandment, and then if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And look at one of the most important things that he says. He says, do not go in and mingle yourselves with those people that you didn't squish yet. That's the whole sons of God, daughters of men problem all over again. Believers mix.
Yeah, I thought about that when I was reading it.
Creating bad things. God doesn't like it when believers go with unbelievers. And he told them that repeatedly. Yeah, I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm just saying, like, it's important because he told them here again, do not mingle with those people. Those people. Do not mix with them, or I will come against you swiftly and destroy you. I mean, because think about it. If you're going to be a dude and you're going to marry a chick who's got some false gods, like, who's going to win here? What are the kids going to believe? They're not going to believe you. They're going to do what the mom says. So they're going to ditch God and go with this new God, and that is what makes the Lord angry. I mean, you see my point, right? I'm not talking about Nephilims or anything. Don't think I'm always going there. Get out of your head.
But the thought did cross my mind when I was reading the passage.
I mean, it can happen, but no, this is just straight up him telling them yet again, it's the same thing as no different from Genesis 6. It's the same thing. Believers and unbelievers together equals bad. Bad, bad, bad.
Is 24 just
24 should be his final farewell, I think. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, he says certain things to certain ones, and he gives a history, and he renews the covenant between them and God. A stone, the witness of the covenant, Joshua's age, death, and burial, and then Joseph's bones. Joseph's bones are also buried. And then Eleazar dies.
interesting? So this covenant.
Yeah, that's the covenant part is in 14-ish. But I mean, if you want, we can might as well finish it off. It's only another 3 verses. Illuminati, let's go. Who wants to take a piece? I'll take a piece. I'll do 11 verses. I'll finish it off if somebody wants to start it and do the middle. Or 2 people. Rob, who hasn't read yet.
I read. The sun went down.
I'm just kidding. On your leg. We all read. Oh, no, wait, Matthew. Matthew, you didn't read, did you?
I haven't. What do you want me to read?
No, it's whatever you want to read. Do you want to read the first part or the second part?
I'll do the first part. Up until when?
11.
11.
33.
Got it. All right. So all set?
Yeah, whoever wants to take 12 to... Screw it. You do the first part, I'll do the rest.
All right. Then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and called for the elders of Israel, for their heads, for their judges, and for their officers, and they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, your fathers, including Terah, the father of Abraham, and the father of Nahor, dwelt on the other side of the river in old times, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from the other side of the river, led him throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his descendants, and gave him Isaac. To Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. To Esau I gave the mountains of Seir to possess, but Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. Also I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt, according to what I did among them. Afterward I brought you out. Then I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came to the sea, and the Egyptians pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. So they cried out to the Lord, and he put darkness between you, and the Egyptians brought the sea upon them and covered them, and your eyes saw what I did in Egypt. Then you dwelt in the wilderness a long time. And I brought you into the land of the Amorites, who dwelt on the other side of the Jordan, and they fought with you. But I gave them into your hand, that you might possess their land, and I destroyed them from before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose to make war against Israel, and sent and called Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not listen to Balaam. Therefore he continued to bless you, so I delivered you out of his hand. Then you went over the Jordan and came to Jericho, and the men of Jericho fought against you, also the Amorites, the Perizzites, Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, but I delivered them into your hand.
And I sent the hornet before you, which drave them out from before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, but not with thy sword, nor with thy bow. And I have given you a land for which you did not labor, and cities which ye built not, and ye dwelt in them. Of the vineyards and the olive yards which ye planted not, do ye eat. Now therefore, fear the Lord, and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And the people answered and said, God forbid that we should forsake the Lord and serve other gods. For the Lord our God, it is that brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. And the Lord drave them out from before the people, and even the Amorites which dwelt in the land. Therefore we will also serve the Lord, for he is our God. And Joshua said unto the people, You cannot serve the Lord, for he is an holy God, and he is a jealous God, and he will not forgive your transgressions nor your sins. If ye forsake the Lord and serve strange gods, then he will turn and do to you hurt and consume you. After that he had done you good. And the people said unto Joshua, Nay, but we will serve the Lord. And Joshua said unto the people, Ye are witnesses against yourselves, that ye have chosen the Lord. Ye have chosen you the Lord to serve him. And they said, We are witnesses. Now therefore put away, said he, the strange gods which were among you, and incline your heart to the God, unto the Lord God of Israel. And the people said unto Joshua, The Lord our God will we serve, and his voice will we obey. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and set them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and took a great stone and set it up there under an oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said unto all the people, behold, this stone shall be a witness unto us, for it hath heard all the words of the Lord which he spake unto us. It shall be therefore a witness unto you, lest ye deny your God. So Joshua let the people depart, every man unto his inheritance. And it came to pass after these things that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath Serah, which is in Mount Ephraim, on the north side of the hill of Gash. And Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders that overlived Joshua, and which had known all the works of the Lord that he had done for Israel. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem, in a parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver, and it became an inheritance of the children of Joseph. And Eleazar the son of Aaron died, and they buried him in a hill that pertained to Phinehas his son, which was given him in Mount Ephraim. Woo!
Okay, this is interesting. He says that he made this new covenant and he made for them laws and statutes, and he put it in the book of the law. But all we have is the book of the law that Moses wrote, so I don't know what this is about. And then one other thing is he said, this stone shall be a witness lest you turn away from God. And I'm just wondering where Jesus says, upon this stone I will build my church, because it's showing that they did forsake the Lord in whatever the covenant that was that Joshua had made with them.
Right.
If that's possible.
Right. No, that's interesting because they did forsake him, and they forsook that too.
So it's not Peter. I mean, we just heard in Galatians last night that Peter was fearing the Jews that James had sent down there and everything. So Peter wasn't the rock.
Right, and they weren't listening to Moses. They didn't listen to Joshua. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. As far as I can tell, because later you have dudes coming around saying the same thing. Wasn't Nehemiah or somebody like pulling their hair out saying like, do not give your children to these people. Like, stop it. It's like smacking people upside the head. I don't know who it was exactly, but one of those guys was going around like pulling their hair out and stuff, freaking out. Because they didn't listen. They were supposed to be a holy nation, set apart. They were supposed to have their own things, their own rules, their own things. They were supposed to be a light, an example to the rest of them that were dwelling around them. Yeah.
The Septuagint just says in verse 26 that he set it under the oak before the Lord. But in the bishops, so I'm not sure where it says that he, even under the oak that was in the sanctuary of the Lord.
Well, yeah, see, because, I don't know what's up with the tree references, but I mean, like the oaks of Mamre. I mean, sometimes the trees actually refer to people. Like,
that's right. The cedars of Lebanon.
Pharaoh is actually a tree. Not saying that's here, but and Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and took a great stone and set it up there under an oak. It just says an oak. For me, that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. So I guess the sanctuary was there, and there was like a tree next to it. And they put the stone next to the tree, next to the sanctuary. So maybe that stone's still there too, but the sanctuary isn't.
Now, where is this taking place?
This is probably around Gilgal, I guess. It's got to be, because they haven't really left yet. I mean, I don't know. They're dividing up the land here, and he gathered them all together for this somewhere. I guess we might have missed that, but wherever they were, he gathered them all together here for his final farewell, right? Because they had already received all their inheritances, or at least that's what it said previously. Like he gave them all their places, and they all went and departed there.
I would imagine that Joshua, being, the emissary of the Most High, kind of like the Most High, like what Moses was, he would be in the most esteemed place of all of the land at that time.
Well, yeah,
would that be Jerusalem?
I don't know, but he's the last one. I mean, we can maybe take a gleam back at it, but he's the last one to get his inheritance, as far as I know. He gets it at the end after he gave everybody else theirs.
I'm just saying, if it was in Jerusalem, I think that's where the Lord had said, upon this stone I will build my church. So it could very well be the same stone, or it's just both figurative or...
Yeah. No, he's not the last one to get it, but the children of Israel give an inheritance to Joshua. So they gave it to him in chapter 1946. Hey, 1946. Where is it? And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for the blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Dan, I don't know where it's saying anything about Joshua, but it's me. I mean, I see it says of Naphtali, of Dan, like this is still the inheritance going out, and then they finally give Joshua something at the end. Oh, yeah. There it is. When they had made an end of dividing the land for an inheritance by their coast, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Joshua, the son of Nun, among them. According to the word of the Lord, they gave him the city which he asked, even Timnath-serah, in Mount Ephraim, and he built the city and dwelt therein. So that's where he was, wherever Timnath-serah was. And then it says, these are the inheritances which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of children of Israel divided for inheritance by lot in Shiloh before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, so that they made an end of dividing the country. So yeah, it was Joshua who got the last one. He got the last lot, but it was the one that he chose. And it was that place, Timnath-serah. Which is apparently near Mount Ephraim.
Well, guess what? God is pagan, because he's like giving stuff to Esau, and he's like helping out Terah when Terah was serving other gods.
You know, it's funny. I didn't notice this, but you remember when Balaam was? Like
That's in Numbers.
Where in the Bible is Balaam?
Numbers.
Numbers, okay. So yeah, interesting.
Or Wanderings. It's really Wanderings, but we call it Numbers.
No, that would make sense, because that is before this. Numbers takes place before this.
Yeah, Numbers is one of the first 5 books.
Yeah. I just say, because it throws Balaam in here in the beginning. It says, but I would not hearken unto Balaam. Therefore he blessed you all. He blessed you still. and I delivered you out of his hand. And then, yeah, Balaam got murked.
Okay, what's the hornet?
Yeah, I don't know. What does yours say? Because I don't know why it said hornet. That's why I enunciated it like that, because it said hornet.
That's verse 12.
And
The
asterisk, I sent the hornet before you. Okay, and then it says star, Exodus 23:28, and Deuteronomy 7:20.
the Apostolic Bible Polyglot says a swarm of wasp. Exodus 23:28, and I will send a swarm of wasp. Deuteronomy 7:20, swarm of wasp.
But see, that again, that story right there,
Yes.
drave them out before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites. The 2 kings of the Amorites was the dudes that Abraham was messing with. Yeah? Wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's like going back. Like, I don't know. I didn't read that whole story about Abraham and the dudes fighting, like the Amorites fighting side by side with them. But like, I don't know what it means by hornets exactly. I mean, maybe he sent some bees, and the bees actually like. It's the worst ever to get attacked by bees.
Or just
run.
like trees and pigs and dogs and sheep and everything, wasps are like the warrior clan, the warrior tribe, the warriors of the
Yeah, exactly. They're not actual hornets. Oh, and I said, wait, hold on. Okay, he went out of the Jordan and came unto Jericho, and the men, okay, blah, 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 and I delivered them into your hand, and I sent out the hornet before you, which drave them out before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, but not with the sword or the bow. See, I don't know, that might be like a whole nother scenario, because it seems to take place, not Abraham. It seems to be Joshua's day, like he's messing with 2 of the kings. Like, I don't know. I don't know. This is clearly after they're already there, though. For a long time, and he's just like, "Yo, remember?" But it seems like he's kind of going in order here, doesn't it? I don't know. No, maybe not. He does say Abraham, then he says Egypt, then he goes into this, and then he's talking about Moab, and then it goes into Jericho, and then all of a sudden hornets. So it seems to be in order for me. Like Esau was in its right spot. So the hornets have to be something that Joshua did.
Maybe the hornet was like a battle tactic where they would send out warriors to look like they were few to draw out the rest of the army, and then when the rest of the army was out there, then they would pounce on them.
Well, that is exactly.
So they would just, sting you and irritate you, kind of thing, and provoke you.
Yeah, that is the exact thing that happened with Ai. Remember? They teased like, "Oh, we're defeated," and they ran away, and then they're like, "Haha, we got them! Let's go destroy them!" And then Joshua was like, "Hey, send the signal, burn their city, like we win." Haha. How's that for a sting? Your city's on fire. Hey, look behind you. Now we're gonna kill you. That would certainly lower their morale, though. I mean, I would not want to be the guys fighting against Joshua. That's for sure. I'd be more like the Gibeonites. I'd be like, "Yo, I came from far away. Look at this bottle, bro. It's so old. I got Mandela. Help me." But then I'd be their slave. But that's okay. I'll get you some water. I'll get you some firewood. Not a big deal for you letting me not, for not destroying us all.
Also, Shechem is Sychar.
Yeah, but then Shechem is named after a dude named Shechem, yeah?
Septuagint says it's Sychar.
Okay. Close enough.
So I guess that's one of those name changes.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it was Shechem.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense. I don't know that they would mess up all the names. But it's a good thing that Josephus tried to undo that damage. I mean, did you guys learn anything from all of Joshua? I mean, well, not all of it because we didn't do all of it, but most of, like you saw the interesting things in there that I was trying to point out. Deceitful Gibeonites being saved and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then I noticed at the end, there's that stone.
Yeah. What's up with that stone? And where is that stone today? Because it doesn't say that it's there to this day. Usually it says that. And yeah, we don't have any books or anything that we know that it's like clearly Joshua wrote these rules, like, oh, these are the rules that Moses wrote, and then here's the ones that Joshua wrote.
Yeah, that's something interesting.
Unless Joshua just rewrote the same things that Moses wrote, but I don't know. It seems here that like they kind of wrote some new stuff. The stone was just the witness, really. Because I mean, in the caption here it says, "He reneweth a covenant between them and God." He renewed it. So if he renewed the covenant, I mean, he's just writing the same thing.
I think Joshua is a big book trying to teach us that you can lose your salvation.
Really? Well, They could have. Sure.
God gave them rest. I mean, he gave them the land. It was the land promise was fulfilled.
But it even says that, Abraham wasn't even necessarily looking for like actual legitimate real land. He was looking for
Oh, I know. That's why it's a picture.
Right. I mean, sure, he was in the land. I mean, he was there before everybody else. And then he went down to Egypt after that because there was a famine.
Like verse 19 says, he is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions nor your sins if you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods. This is after he...
Right, but this is also the same thing that the angel told Joshua before he took Jericho.
And it literally says, after he has done you good.
He said, the angel that was talking, that one, captain of the guard, was like, yo, listen to this angel, because if you don't, he ain't going to forgive you. I'm going to send my angel before you to prepare the way. Listen to him. If you don't, he ain't going to forgive you. Who's the angel? Who's not doing the forgiving?
Interesting how it says Joshua made a covenant with the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he gave them a law and an ordinance in Shiloh.
Right. Interesting.
And he wrote these words in the book of the laws of God.
Oh, God. Are you telling me we have to read this whole thing all over again, except without Joshua there, Jesus there instead? I don't know. That is interesting, though. Why?
He gave them a law and an ordinance. Well, Jesus gave a law and an ordinance. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Yep. Took a large stone and set it up.
Upon this stone, I will build my church.
Yep. Well, what about the stone that hits the statue?
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, seems to be a lot of allusions in here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all here. The warning, like, if you mess up, you're going to be cut off from the land. You're going to get the boot. Like,
people don't really quote Joshua except for one quote mining of choose this day whom you will serve, though.
Right.
Well, they quote Joshua a lot more, but for other reasons. Ridiculous.
Just the Flat Earth Society guys, right?
Well, that and also, yeah, the part concerning Joshua with numbers and all that. You know, we were as grasshoppers and all that.
Oh, okay.
What about the mountains of Ephraim? That sounds significant, since Ephraim is given the blessings to be the fullness of the Gentiles.
Right, and it's funny that Joshua picked that spot near Mount Ephraim, because he was the last one to get a lot, according to what it says there. Like everybody else.
Yeah, I'm horrible. I'm horrible in geography. So is Mount Ephraim somewhere near Mount Gershom?
Oh no. Well, yeah, I don't know. There's Sinai and Ebal, which are like close to each other. I don't know where Ephraim is.
Then there was Mount Ekron.
There's tons of them. Mount of Olives, Mount of this, Mount of that, mountain here, mountain there, mountain where a dude man hid out Elijah's cave. I love it though how it says here in the part that you read, Stacy. In 23.
Which part?
16. It says, "When ye have transgressed the covenant of your Lord your God." it's like
Not if, but when.
You're gonna do it. Like when you have done it, this is what's gonna happen. Just so you know. He doesn't say like if you do. He says when you do.
Kind of like an already, but not yet.
Yeah, exactly. When ye have transgressed the covenant of your Lord your God, which he has commanded you, and have gone and served other gods, just like he told them not to. When you have done that, well, then shall the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and ye shall perish quickly from off the good land which he hath given unto you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that as like, yeah, back then they could have lost it, but it wasn't necessarily like losing. Well, I guess you could say it was losing their salvation. But as far as nowadays, like, it's not the same.
The giving of the good land that he has given unto you. That's 15, right?
No, the good land that he's given to you. I don't know. That might be. Yeah, that is in 15, but it's also in 16 at the end.
So then, isn't that covenant like fulfilled?
What?
Oh yeah, it does say somewhere that that the promises were fulfilled in Joshua. All the land that was promised.
They got the physical land that they were hoping
Right.
for, but it wasn't. They weren't always hoping for physical land. So
Right. I know, but I'm thinking of like Hebrew roots of trying to show them that covenant's been done away with because it was fulfilled. It was done. Contract was complete. Move on. Type thing.
Where is that verse where it says and God had given them all the land that was promised? It's not actually in Joshua, is it?
I don't know.
I don't remember where
the exact wording.
It's pretty close to I'm gonna just
Deuteronomy 19:8 says, "And if the Lord God, your God enlarges your territory as he swore to your fathers and gives you all the land he promised them."
No, there's a verse that says he gave them.
Yeah, that's not it. Joshua.
See, the thing is, I'm thinking it would be in Joshua because, the Hebrew roots, they only go through the first 5 books and they just read that every year and they just look at that and that's all they look at unless they're wanting to argue with someone saying the New Testament is wrong or something like that.
Yeah, Joshua 21:43.
So the Lord gave to Israel all the land which he swore to give to their fathers, and they inherited it and dwelt in it. The promise
Covenant
fulfilled.
fulfilled.
Yeah, I've got a little title there for that last 3 verses. It says the promise fulfilled.
I mean,
So I wonder,
Go ahead.
or Ezekiel what?
Oh, Ezekiel 20. It says, when I brought them into the land of them, and they saw any high hill or leafy tree, there they offered their sacrifices, presented offerings that provoked me, sent up their fragrant incense, and poured out their drink offering. So I asked them, what is this high place to which you go? I don't know. That's probably not relevant.
And in 45 it says, not a word failed of any good thing which the Lord had spoken to the house of Israel. All came to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, you Hebrew roots. I mean, it's pretty plain, right?
Yeah, it does look plain here.
I mean, right here, Joshua 23:15. But just as every good thing the Lord your God promised you has come to pass, likewise, the Lord will bring upon you the calamity he has threatened until he has destroyed you from this good land it has given you. It's already given, so they already got it.
Yeah, I'm bookmarking those two for this guy I'm talking with about wanting to do the old law.
But yo, that's interesting with that Ezekiel one I just read, right? 29 said, so I asked them, what is this high place to which you go? Oh yeah, does it remind you of anything? Spiritual wickedness in high places? Yeah, not talking about the sky, bro. We're talking about
What verse was that again?
high hills and stuff.
Ezekiel 29 what?
2029.
I came on a little late today. So, Stacy, did you guys discuss Galatians 2 again at all with Rob?
No, we really didn't. I just made a mention that Rob seems to want to look at, because I don't know about the first or second view. When I was looking at his video, I seem to have missed those for some reason. But the third view is what he was talking about, like, the eating of the pork, the traditional view of the church, that Peter was reverting back to, I guess, justification from the law. And then his fourth view was that, and that seems to be what he's holding to, is that, well, Peter was going over to the Jews and, not, and being partial. Okay, so he was showing partiality because the Jews seem to be more closer to God or something. But if that's the case, the thing is, the whole point is verse 16 in there. Verse 16 is talking about righteousness through faith or righteousness through works of the law. That verse would not be in there if it was option 4, which he said that it's just Peter was showing preference. If Peter was only showing preference alone, then Paul would have written, for God is not partial. There's neither Jew nor Greek. He doesn't say that. Verse 16 is critical in that section there.
Yeah, no, obviously I agree, but and it seems like Armand, I think, has the same view as Rob.
Now, I'm not quite sure of Armand's view that he wasn't really sinning or something. I'm not. Yeah, I didn't quite get, but he really didn't discuss it tonight.
Yep. Yeah, I think Armand wanted to. One of the things he wanted to do, but guys were talking about.
But you agree, right? If it was just partiality that he was showing, then Paul would have mentioned about, you shouldn't be partial.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think I agree with you probably 100% on this one. It's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
The language is so clear. And the context is clear, because
that's the thing where you can, like, get off into something where you look at immediate context first. before you jump off into, speculation, or you go to another book or you go to another chapter, you need to look at what's above and what's below it, right? So I mean, that's exactly what's right below it.
Well, and then when you look at the greater context, it even more confirms it, because what else? What's the whole book about? You know, it's it's against reverting back to the law.
Right.
I mean, that's why when I asked Rob, so what is or I actually asked Armand, what is the false gospel? But he didn't. He said he was going to answer in the hangout. But if you answer the question correctly, that the false gospel is following the law again, then there you go. That's the whole context of the book.
Indeed.
Right. And the false gospel is described were in verse 16, because it says right above that, and somewhere around 14 or something, that they were not acting in truth of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what is the truth of the gospel? He explains it right there in 16.
And where does Paul say? I got to pull it up. Somewhere he says,
Is Galatians one of the original books of Paul?
yeah, that I'm not sure of. Somewhere he
This
says,
guy,
I stand in doubt of you. I think what Paul meant by that was, I'm wondering if you're even saved at this point.
yeah,
Because he's calling them foolish. They're following. They're adhering to a false gospel, and he's coming on extremely strong from the very beginning. And then when you get to Acts 15, this is a different occurrence after Peter has already realized that salvation is by faith alone. There's no going back to the law. He's been he's been refreshed, and it's now later on, and then men still come down from Jerusalem, and it says not only do they say you have to be circumcised, but it says and follow the law of Moses. But then Peter gives a nice sermon on the truth.
I'm just kind of wondering, if people were going to be, pleasing God by following all these rules, like today in our year, 2018. I'm just wondering why he ain't done none of the miracles we used to see back in the Old Testament with y'all. Like, if you guys are doing it all right, we're doing it all wrong, then how come he ain't talking to you neither? He ain't doing no miraculous things for you, like, raining hailstones on people and taking the city and all this stuff, and like dividing seas and splitting rivers and taking dudes up in fiery chariots or separating them with chariots. And, he ain't doing all that stuff now. Is he? Not that I've seen.
No, well, your point is that that's all part of the old covenant, right?
Yeah.
So,
yes. So there's no more of that's going to happen. So, I mean, like.
But, you can see why some of these guys get, like, really beside themselves when you say that the law is done away with, because without the proper understanding of the true gospel, you immediately think, well, does that mean I could do anything I want? I mean, what do you mean the law of God is gone? What do you out of your mind? I mean, you can take yourself out of the knowledge that you have for a moment and actually see like what a religious, unsaved person would think about that. And that's how I view them. They're just religious people.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, a lot of them do say, well, we know we're not saved by the law. We know faith saves us.
Faith?
But then,
what?
Right. But
God wants us to do the law. It pleases him to do this, to wear a tzitzit. It pleases us to take a day off. So, we can do these things. We don't have to buy gas on the Sabbath day. But as far as, oh, well, I don't want to touch this person, they're unclean, or I don't want to go out and love or forgive someone, they don't talk about the harder things to do.
Well, that's why in Galatians, what is it, 5? It lists the fruit of the Spirit as opposed to the commandments of the law. And it says, against these things, there is no law. So
Right.
I don't know what they do with that, because Paul is basically saying, the law never said, the law said, don't do this. The law is basically a bunch of negative. It's don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. But then Paul is giving you the positive spiritual fruit, which the law never even commanded. So Paul is like saying, hey, if you got the Spirit, you're going to be doing these things that is so surpasses the law that against them, like compared to them, there is no law.
Right. And that's why it would be obvious and easy to tell who is who back then. Because it's like, oh, do you have the Spirit? I don't know. Let me ask you a question. Should I keep the law? Well, there you go. I just figured out which kind of dude you are. Depends on who I'm talking to.
And right, and it's funny that the whole theme of the book is the dichotomy between the two. And then right before the fruit of the Spirit, he he goes into now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are adultery, fornication, immorality, lewdness. Okay, we all know those. Idolatry, sorcery. I think sorcery is leaning on your own strength. Hatred, contentions, jealousy, outburst of wrath, like we just saw from a Hebrew roots guy. Selfish ambitions, factions. Oh, this is our camp. You're in another camp.
Yeah. Exactly.
It says,
tell them by their fruit.
Which I tell you beforehand, just as I also told you in time past. So this is an original epistle, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God.
Really, what these guys, factions, is pertinent to the issue, because really what they're doing is, like we said in the chat, they're building the law again, and they're putting up the middle wall of partition again, and they're becoming, it really should be called the Jewish roots movement.
Yes.
They're making themselves out to be Jewish. There's like this.
They're becoming proselytes.
Right.
That's really the only reason I think that the Lord might actually do something about it. It's like, if they keep doing this, like, I don't know. I don't think it would even get that far. But if it did, like, if they did try and take it too far, like, what would happen? I think God's hand would be forced in a way. And he would have to stop it.
No, I don't think it'll ever come to fruition. But I wonder if this is if there were some Talmudic rabbis that sort of started this movement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're ever going to be able to like rebuild a third temple or anything. Like, that's just stupid. Like, no, the Dome of the Rock is there, and it's going to stay there. Ain't going nowhere.
Well, there was a lot of, like I said before, when I was a young Christian, I listened to this ministry called Messianic Perspectives. It was originally called the Christian Jew Foundation, and they would teach a lot of the Old Testament, but they believed in everything correctly in the New Testament, saved by faith and all that stuff. But they would say that unless you look at the Bible with a Messianic perspective, or unless you know the roots, you won't really understand it, which was kind of true. I mean, in a way, but it's also kind of backwards. You really have to know, you really have to know what the New Testament says about the Old in order to understand the Old. And everybody always says it the other way, like, oh, you gotta be grounded in the Old Testament.
Right? Yeah. No, it's totally the new reveals the old. The old.
Not really.
In the old, they didn't know what the heck was going on, except for maybe a few dudes, and even they didn't even.
Right. Because you can understand the New Testament, but and do good and be right and think and believe the right thing. But what you won't know is, why are they quoting all these Old Testament verses? So if you believe the New Testament and then you go back and you look at where they quote the old, now you're going to know the difference. That's what you'll know. You'll know where we came from. But it's not like these guys are saying the foundation is the old covenant. It's not the foundation. That, I mean, Paul.
Right, because if you go back there, then you won't know where you're going. You won't know
Yeah.
where you're going to, what's leading up to.
And
That's why they are on the futurism and stuff.
Right. And why does Paul say that? Why does Paul say that the foundation? He doesn't say the foundation built on the law and the prophets. He says it's built on the apostles and the prophets, which is usually a phrase that's, you know,
because Jesus fulfilled all that was written in the law and the prophets. There is, you know, there is no more.
Just to let you guys know, the guy that I'm talking to that says the first covenant hasn't been done away with and everything, but today at a Bible study, I see him on Wednesdays and Fridays. Today he said, "Have you ever read the Gospel of Thomas?" So, you know, I showed him, you know, I did, but I've got to go back and read it because he's got very, very a strong Gnostic stream in him too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Thomas was the doubting Thomas. Hello. Like, he was the guy that was like, oh, I'm not going to believe it until I see him. You know, he's
right, but
friend Dan, he's like, yo, unless I can see Jesus and like put my finger in them holes, I ain't going to believe it. And then when he finally
Thomas is one of the
like, okay, I got you. All right, you're right. My bad. I messed up.
Yeah, Thomas is one of the Gnostic Gospels. I do have a soft spot for Gnostics. They're not like Hebrew roots. They don't irritate me like Hebrew roots do, though. But.
So does this guy that you're talking with, does he esteem Paul, or does he explain away?
No, he hates Paul. He explains away Paul. In fact, I said, well, okay, look in Acts chapter, what is it, 10 or 13 or something about the vision that Ananias had. And it says, the Lord God said, you know, this is my chosen servant whom I had chosen. And he said, we have never heard from Ananias ever since. So I don't believe that even happened.
Oh, wow.
So he'll explain away the book of Acts. He'll recognize some things. And so today he said, well, I only believe in Paul as far as the original letters, you know, not the later letters, because he said that the church compiled and wrote the New Testament for their agenda. So he's very anti-church, anti-Trinity, which is a good thing. But, you know, he even told me that his wife said, look, you really can't stand Paul, I understand, but look, just look at verse by verse, and the things that you agree with Paul, agree with. The things that you disagree, throw it out. I mean, that's the way that she just like threw her hands up in the air and stuff. But he is very anti-Paul. He said Paul never said anything or taught anything that Jesus taught, that he teaches something totally different. So the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee, I'm going to bring that up to him tomorrow. Yeah.
Is this guy a legitimate Jew?
He does not wear tzitzit.
No, I mean, is he a legitimate Jew? Like, what color is he? Like, I will go that far. What color is he?
He's white. He was raised Baptist. He's Caucasian.
Yeah. So if he's going to throw Paul out, he's screwed. Like, if you're going to throw Paul out, then you just threw away like half the New Testament. Bye-bye. See you later.
But what's hard to work around is like we were in Micah, I think it's chapter 6:8 or 7:8, where it says, and what do I require of you? The Lord is talking to them, and he says, to be merciful, to seek justice. And he says, and he points to me, he says, see, this is the law. And I can agree with that. So, but then he wants to like keep the Sabbath, but then he says, but I like to play pickleball on the Sabbath.
Oh, that's work, bro.
So I have to, you know, say, well, I'm going to play pickleball and just hope that the Lord will be merciful to me, because the Lord is merciful on whom he wishes to be merciful on.
Indeed.
So it's really kind of strange. He's like kind of all over the place, picking and choosing. So today what I told him is, look, I see this whole thing as a game that we play to seek enlightenment. And we all have our set rules that we play, because if we're playing a game and we have no rules, then the game really isn't fun. And so the rules that, these guys here around play is they want to stay within the Christian mindset, the Christian doctrine, and they want to play the game using those, and like for a Buddhist, they would want to use theirs. And so he sort of understood that a little bit. And then I was telling them about the tools because, Masons use tools for certain things, surgeons use tools. And so, we have the Bible as our tool. So you shouldn't just be cutting and pasting and picking things out that disagree with you, but look into it for a little bit more in-depth knowledge and wisdom. And so that's what I'll continue on Friday.
It's interesting you said that he says that Paul and Jesus don't teach anything that's the same. And on the surface, they don't. But when you know what's going on, like all the time, I'll read something from Jesus and I'll be like, wait a minute. That refers to Paul or vice versa. And here's a good example.
Right.
Okay. Romans 7 and Luke 16. Did you ever compare those two?
No, I haven't, but I want to bookmark those. So let me go to Romans 7 first. What verse?
Basically, almost all of the beginning of 7, where he talks about dying to the law. And if a husband, a woman is bound to her husband until the husband dies.
Okay, Romans 7. And then what was the other one?
Well, Luke 16, it's this little non sequitur thing that you wonder, like, what the heck was Jesus talking about? It's right in between two parables. It's right in between the parable of the steward and then the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. And it talks about, where is it? Whoever, about 18.
Okay.
Or, yeah. Well, he just throws this in. Whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. And whoever marries her who is divorced from her husband commits adultery. Now, if you read that in the context of Luke 16, it makes absolutely no sense.
It's arbitrary.
But now that you know, if you know the teaching of Paul, you can go back and read Jesus' words here, and if you know what the parables mean.
Right, because, a lot of people would think that you're talking about, like, actual adultery. Like,
well, look what he's talking about in verse 16. It's the law.
Right. Well, I mean, under the law, like, you have to, like, you're bound under these certain things. And so, therefore, like, in order to marry someone new, somebody has to die.
But Jesus is talking about, this is the series of parables that he gives, starting with the pearl, and the coin, and then the prodigal son, and this is all about Israel, and then he gets to the steward, and the steward is Israel, who's about to lose her stewardship, and then the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man. All of these are about Israel losing their place as the people of God. And what goes when Israel goes? The law. So he says in Luke 16, right in the middle of these two parables, it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for one tittle of the law to fail. And then he says, whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. And whoever marries her who is divorced from her husband commits adultery.
Right. It was adultery against God.
I'll be able to use that verse, but as far as the two parables above and below, what he would say is the Pharisees were also corrupt back then.
Right. They pin it on the Pharisees and not the whole nation.
Right.
Also, he has to remember that, like, it probably hurts his soul inside when you say things like "done away with." Like, it's gonna hurt his feelings. I mean, because he hears
I
that.
try not to use
just
abolished.
Automatically thinks something in his head because you said that. I'm just saying, like, because it wasn't everybody who was, previously under the previous regime that was going to get, destroyed and all that. Like, he provided an escape for those who believed in him. Yeah. So
look what
the whole old thing was done. Like, to me, it was like certain dudes had to keep on keeping on until the end, but the rest of y'all who just came in, no, you don't have to keep on keeping on because you weren't even part of that to begin with. So you just do the new way, and you guys keep doing the old way, and then eventually you'll come together. And boom, there you go. New heavens and new earth. That one's gone. This is what you all do now.
But listen to this. In Luke 16:14, you know how the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, it's the rich man, right? But it's really not about money. But in Luke 16:14, it says, now the Pharisees who were lovers of money also heard these things, and they derided him. But Jesus then said, you are those who justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. For what is highly esteemed among men, I think he's talking about the law. You guys are esteeming the law, and what you are doing is really an abomination because you're trusting in the law.
Right.
And then he goes on to the law and the prophets were until John. Everyone's pressing into the kingdom.
Right. But I mean, like I said, who is he talking to when he's saying these things? Like, it depends on which group he's talking to, because sometimes he's talking to Jews, sometimes he's talking to Gentiles. So Gentiles, he's seemingly saying one thing, and then Jews, he's seemingly saying something.
Well, he's talking to Pharisees.
He's like, yo, you guys have to keep doing this thing, but you guys over here, you were never under that, so you don't have to. Like, you guys over here are being ridiculous, telling them that they have to do this in order to be joining your club. Your club is about to end, so like, come on.
Right.
You are part of the club still. You have to keep doing that until all these things happen, and then you can, then you're part of this club over here now on the other side.
But check it out. Paul is actually interpreting Jesus, because Jesus is speaking in parables, and it's couched in mystery. And if you read just Jesus, you're like, what the heck was that?
Right, and that was the thing that I just read, and that when I was reading, it said on the other side of the flood. I'm gonna suppose that's not supposed to be the word flood there, but maybe it is. But on the other side of the river or the waters, notice how they had to cross the waters. It was like, I brought you over from that side, across the waters, over to this side. You get it? Kind of like metaphorical speech, like, except they're actually doing it. You see what I'm saying? He's like, but you want to go back to the other side of the river. Remember that from Joshua, what we just wrote? He's like, oh, I brought you across over here, but now you guys, some of y'all want to go back over there across the other side. But no matter which side you're going to be on, I'm going to follow the Lord. Remember that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? What I was saying?
Yeah, apparently, yes.
Water.
Apparently, this this guy is very anti-Paul because he said that he was a deacon in a Baptist church. So that's kind of like an elder and deacon both, servant and elder. And he had mentioned this, and I don't know the specifics about this, but he says that his pastor was in some sin. And his pastor was confronted by this on multiple occasions, and the pastor would just preach Paul and just preach grace. Like, you've got to forgive me, I can, do whatever because we're in the age of grace. Now, if this guy was coming to that pastor and saying something about, well, you've got to keep the law or observe the dietary laws or something like that, I can understand the pastor saying grace. But if he was committing adultery or some immoral law or something, then it certainly would have been wrong. But because he had this dialogue with this pastor, he decides, well, because you're using Paul that way, that's what Paul must be saying. Therefore, Paul is wrong. Rather than the pastor's wrong, Paul is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to open up with on Friday morning when I talk with him, you ever heard of Aesop? Aesop's fairy tales or Aesop's fables?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the story of the wolf and the lamb. And it says, a hungry wolf one day saw a lamb drinking at the stream below him and wished to find some excuse for eating her. What do you mean by muddying up the water that I am going to drink? He said fiercely to the lamb. Pray forgive me meekly, answered the lamb. For I should be sorry in any way to displease you, but as the stream runs from you towards me, you will see that I am not to blame. That is very well, said the wolf. But you know that you spoke ill of me behind my back a year ago. Nay, believe me, replied the lamb. I was not yet then born. It must have been your brother then, and growled the wolf. It cannot have been, for I have never had any, answered the lamb. I know it was one of your lot, rejoined the wolf. So make no more idle excuses. Then he seized the poor lamb and carried her off to the woods and ate her. So the wicked always find an excuse for wrongdoing. So it doesn't matter whether they're going to use Paul or whether they're going to use the Torah or whatever they're going to use some excuse for whatever the wickedness that they're doing. So just because this pastor had sinned and used Paul, he could have easily used any other excuse too, that Paul's one of the good guys, and then I'm going to show him how he would agree with Paul on certain things. But it is kind of difficult. But
what I like to say is, like, look, the things that I come out of my mouth, they might be hard for you to like deal with, whatever. But what I need you to do when we're talking is I need you to go ahead and take all that lovely knowledge that you have already accrued and just put it over here to the side. Don't bring it up at all. Pretend like you're a complete new baby. You just got here and you know nothing. Now, answer my questions without all that previous knowledge.
yeah, he's not very debateful. He's very meek and humble when we speak. And he says, I just want to learn from you and what you have. And at some points I'm thinking this is flattery, and then other things I'm thinking maybe it is sincerity. I don't know.
Right. Well, that's how you test him. You have him be like, just if you could bear with me, like take all that lovely stuff that you think you know or that you do know, whatever, put it all to the side just for a minute. We'll just talk about it. I'll ask you some questions, but I do not want you to dwell off of like all the stuff that you've been taught and learned. Like I want you to answer as though you like knew nothing. Like if I'm just asking you like a simpleton's question, it's designed so that like he'll booby trap himself. Like he'll see it himself. Like you won't have to tell him. He'll see the error of his own way, because you're forcing him to answer the questions as though he, like, if he says something like, "Oh well, Paul could," you'd be like, see, you're bringing that stuff in again. You can't do that. Now answer it without that. What do you got? He won't have anything, and it's like, or he will have something because he'll think of it right there on the spot. I don't know. It's a subtle booby trap to get them to defeat their own selves.
Yeah, I'm still trying to pinpoint what law is it that he wants to follow, because he understands about mercy and about compassion and not sacrifice. So I'm not sure, but he doesn't like Hebrews. He doesn't like Paul, obviously.
Maybe, well, yeah, I mean, like, why would you not like Hebrews? Like, what's wrong with Hebrews? I love Hebrews. Like, that's like one of my favorite books.
Oh, Hebrews is corrupt. The author was so ashamed he didn't even put his name on it. What are you talking about? No, he would never say that, but, that's...
Because Luke was totally written by Luke, or, whatever, anybody else. Like, Matthew was totally written by Matthew. Right. Mm-hmm.
So I've got to read the Gospel of Thomas again. Have you ever heard any debunking things about that?
Yeah, I mean, dude.
Or any criticisms?
Just read it. Just read it. You'll see. It's, I don't know. It's out there.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago and thought, the same thing that I think when I read the Book of Mormon. It just sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, he was supposedly a doubting Thomas. I mean, that's where the doubting Thomas comes from, right? It's him.
I think it's actually a later writing anyway. But it talks about. It goes more along exactly the words that Jesus said is what the presentation goes for. It's basically these are the sayings of Jesus, and it goes through certain things. Some things line up with the other gospels, some things do not.
Yeah, as I recall, the Gospel of Thomas is nothing more than just a collection of just the sayings of Jesus.
There's one thing I do remember.
Really, it's just straight up the sayings of Jesus, and then every now and then,
one
verse where it's like, wait a minute, I don't recall Jesus ever saying that.
There's one thing that I remember that it says that this guy asked Jesus a question, and Jesus whispered into his ear. And then the people in the crowd asked the man, "What did Jesus say to you?" And he said, "If I said to you what Jesus said to me, you would pick up stones and you would throw them at me, and the fire of heaven would come down and swallow you all up."
Well, I mean, does that not make sense?
Well, what it is it's a hint to the Gnosticism that you are God, because that's the only reason why they would pick up stones to throw at the man.
Is it?
Or can you think of any other?
Well, I mean, what you said, like, I'm trying to. You'd have to say the whole verse again for me to regather my thought, but no, I didn't hear it that way.
So Jesus whispers into this man's ear, and then everybody else wants to know what Jesus had said to the man. And so they ask the man, and the man says, "If I told you what he told me, you would pick up stones and throw them at me."
Right. That makes perfect
And
sense.
stone me to death.
You have stoned the prophets and all that. Like, who did that? Yeah, all the non-believers who wouldn't believe Jesus. So if I told you what he told me, you would kill me. Makes perfect sense to me. Same thing that happened to all the people that trusted in Jesus. They were all, Steve. Remember Stephen? Stephen? Good old Stephen?
Yeah. But
And then, hey. No, never mind.
that guy on the video that Rob was showing, that he saw Jesus at the right hand of the Father, sitting on the throne next to God the Father. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if you were here, Matt, when he was showing that thing.
No.
But I'm thinking to myself, well, how do you see God?
With the two doctors?
Yeah, the two doctors.
Oh, yeah, that was my fault.
So they want to take it literally. That was you. Yeah, that's right. That was you that was doing it.
But yeah, I mean, those guys. I mean, see, they're not in it for the truth. They're in it to debunk preterism. That's it. Like they don't care. Like you could pawn them 6 ways from Sunday, they wouldn't see it. Like you would legit own them by like anybody else. Like if you all saw, like you would be like, oh yeah, you totally owned them. But he would be like, no, I won. He can't see it. He's blinded. It's like, yo, I don't know about this. Sometimes I feel like I really do feel for people because like I want them to have the truth, but yo, if they're just gonna shut you down and poop on you, then you know what? Maybe there's a reason that they don't have the truth.
There's a thing with dispensationalism that now coming out of it, you realize that it is a complete brainwashing for one thing, but it's not just a doctrine. It's literally a hermeneutic. When you're taught dispensationalism, you then use dispensationalism to interpret everything you read, and you don't know it, and then you can't get out of it. It's something drastic has to happen to like shock you, like what God showed me with Daniel chapter 9 and the Antichrist. That shocked me into like, wait a minute, if he in Daniel 9 is not Antichrist, but it's Jesus, then that changes everything. And I had to reevaluate the whole Bible. Something like that had to shock me into it. Otherwise, you just can't see it. You could throw verses at these guys, and they're interpreting it according to dispensationalism.
Right, but that's because you have to be open to it in the first place, because that's the way that I found the preterism in the first place. Like, I was challenged by one of my dispensational friends to go ahead and look at it, because he was like, go ahead, look at it. You'll see how dumb it is. He was so confident. So I looked at it with an open heart and everything, and I was like, let me just see what they have to say. Let's find out. And then I had to go back to him and be like, bro, they're more right than you are. Like, like their points were too solid. What can I say? Like, I have no argument for this, like I have to concede. But he won't do that. He's like, nope, you're being ridiculous. I can't believe you joined their side. Like, he didn't go so far as saying like, I can't talk to you anymore or anything, but you know how that goes. If you have two conflicting views, you're not going to talk to each other very much.
No, but then what kind of works a little bit. I think I've converted two people. I know of two in by blogging on videos. I've converted them out of dispensationalism, and what they don't, something that I didn't realize either. You if you think of the Gospels as a whole, you think of Jesus coming to his own, but his own rejecting him. But you don't realize how judgmental Jesus is toward them the whole time. When you go back,
Like, they're like, no, but he loves us though. Like, right?
yeah, when
right?
you go back and you look at all of the reprimands that Jesus is doing, it's like, and what this guy that Stacy's talking to, what they all do is they pin it on just the Pharisees.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pin it on the nation. If you can show to this guy that Jesus is condemning the nation, or somehow they can see that, or this generation, but still, their answers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, no, even if you give them the most solidest thing you could even think about, the most solidest thing possible from the Bible, like, they will still find a way to dance around it.
That's why I call it a brainwashing. It's very difficult to unbrainwash someone.
It is, with a number of things. Wink, wink. More than just this.
Yeah, well, to me, this is more of a dispensationalism is more of a brainwashing. So dispensationalism compared to partial preterism, to me, is a total brainwashing. Partial preterism compared to full preterism is just a doctrine. Like, it's not like.
Don't be partial now. Don't be partial.
It's not like a brainwashing. You know what I mean? Like, because I can see when I was a dispensationalist, I should say, I didn't know preterism existed. And if somebody explained to me preterism, I would have totally dismissed it. But and wouldn't even try to understand it, and thought of it as total heresy. But I can see how full preterism works, and I don't dismiss it as heresy. And you know what I mean? Like my mind is open at this point.
Right. No, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're a full preterist. You realize it yet? You're there. You're there.
Closet.
You don't realize it yet.
This closet, right?
Just think in. It's one of those things. Like it's like delayed effects. Like it's delayed effects. Like I hit you last week, but it takes a week. To think in.
You will be like every other preterist when you hear people that are speaking against it well, you're just saying that because that's what you want it to say. And every single one of us has debated it and just fought it tooth and nail until it finally sunk in. No one has ever been a preterist by choice.
Yep. Even me, I had to battle it. After that, I was like, yo, I did admit that, like, yo, these guys are making more sense. But, like, as I was watching those videos, whatever video, like, I watched this one video, I don't know, I have to find it for you, but it was, like, a very well done one. It was, like, an hour long, something, but when I saw that video, I was like, yo, I had so many questions, but then I went and conquered them on my own, by myself, without anybody's help. Except for like maybe occasionally asking a question about somebody's opinion. But I had to work my way through the whole thing, and I was like, oh, now I see it. Now I get it. Now it's making a lot more sense. Like, yeah, this takes time. You can't just overnight be like, yep, I'm a full preterist now. Look, I just changed. Like, I haven't seen anybody do that. Anybody.
There's a guy, when I was really researching it, and like kind of on the fence, but now realizing that something's terribly wrong, I found this guy who did a whole series on it, and it's one of the best series. Haven't watched it.
The same one that I'm talking about. What's it called?
I gotta find it. But the teacher, he's actually.
Is it the one where he's like, my friend Gary was, that one?
No, his name is Larry T. Smith.
Okay, different one.
And he does a whole series on. He goes through. I mean, this guy does a phenomenal teaching on partial preterism, but he doesn't call it partial preterism. It's just against dispensationalism. And he really, if you watch that with an open mind and you're a dispensationalist, I don't care. You have to see it. You have to at least be shaken, because he does such a great job. It's a little drawn out, but he shows you everything. Who Mystery Babylon is in one part of the series, the promises in another part, and he's not Trinitarian. He's Pentecostal.
Probably oneness Pentecostal then.
He's oneness Pentecostal. Yep.
That video that I was talking about is actually called "You Gotta Be Kidding, Right?"
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, that one. Because I mean, that's the first thing. It's the first thing everybody thinks of, right? You gotta be kidding, right? It's like, no, I'm not kidding. It's all fulfilled. That's too deep.
I
You
did
can't
see
go that far that fast, right? Because as soon as you say that, they turn you off. If you
Mhm.
say all things are fulfilled, like right off the bat, you're done. You get the axe immediately. You gotta slowly work your way in. You gotta be sneaky like a snake, but at the same time, gentle as a dove. You can't.
Yeah.
I like this term that I heard of when I saw a debate between this futurist guy and this other guy. I think he was a partial preterist, but it wasn't even about eschatology. It was about something else. But this guy said, well, this guy believes that all these things took place back in the first century, so you don't need to believe him in anything, kind of, straw man or red herring kind of thing. And so the guy said, all I am is an exegetical eschatologist. And that's perfect.
You're not talking about Hank Hanegraaff, are you?
I don't remember. I don't know that name, and it's someone that I'm not that familiar with. So I know it was not a Matt Slick video, but it was something. And he calls himself exegetical eschatologist.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I think I heard Hank Hanegraaff say that when he was debating Mark Hitchcock, and they were debating the timing of the writing of the Book of Revelation, but it turned into a, preterism versus futurism.
It probably is that. Yeah, it may be that debate, because the guy was like, that was his main ace that he wanted to use, and that's all he would want to do is, try to show that Revelation was written afterwards, therefore everything you say is wrong, kind of thing.
Right. And Hank Hanegraaff is the Bible Answer Man guy.
Right.
The Bible Answer. What do you mean?
That was his radio show for years.
Okay.
The Bible Answer Man. Christian Research Institute, CRI. He wrote a bunch of books, and he's the guy who recently converted to Orthodox Christianity, and he got a lot of flack from a lot of Christians.
Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox.
I think, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's Eastern or Greek. I don't know the difference.
I don't like the word convert.
It is strange that he did what he did. It is kind of a strange thing.
I don't like that. He converted. It's like, no, he changed his mind.
Yeah. But
he didn't convert.
I don't know about the Catholic Church or the Orthodox, whether they're partial preterist or they're futurist.
Yeah, or if they even have an opinion on the matter, because they're not real studiers.
The Lutherans are partial preterists, but they prefer to just say they don't have an opinion on the matter.
Right.
And they don't talk about it.
I don't know. Are you guys angry? I'm angry. Not at people. At this.
You mad, brah? You mad, brah?
Mad, brah. What I want to do is I want to take y'all and all yours inputs and soundbite that and get Rob's wizardry to whip up some videos somehow. I mean, I can make some videos too, but like I'm not as good as he is.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Tiny and
Did you see that video?
I don't got that software, but nonetheless, I want to make some videos. I want to make some waves up in this house because I am tired of these people preaching false things. You know,
I
like
know. I've been wanting to do
point
teachings.
where I'm fed up. It's like, yo, dude, I can't take no more. Y'all, every time I look at a video, y'all be talking whack stuff.
I know. I just said to Rob the same thing the other day. I'm like, Rob, I wish I knew how to make videos like you. I'd be doing some teachings.
He
Well-
really does make some good ones, doesn't he?
Yep.
If you're willing to record yourself on little tiny sound bites, he can use them and incorporate them in his little tiny short videos. But you have to just like make your little sound bites and send them to him. I mean, I'd have to ask him first too, but
Did I hear him right? Did he say he's got a new job?
he's trying to get a new job. He might have actually landed it, because I mean, the other day when I talked to him, he said he might be starting work on a new job soon, so he might have gotten it. But yeah, I think we should make some videos, make some waves, you know, get it out there. Because I mean, even if we get negative, like, you know, that's what happens first. You saw what happened with the.
Oh, all three of us love to respond to YouTube comments. We're YouTube comment debaters for sure.
No,
I love doing
I
that.
know. I do. I haven't done it in a while.
I mean, like, could you imagine? Like, you know, we just make the videos, and then, you know, Rob posts, like, we saw our little sound clip, whatever we're supposed to be recorded saying, and then he puts it all together, whips it up like a genius, puts it on there, and then bam, it's a video. Then somebody gets paid off of it, hopefully. But you know, aside from the movie side,
All of the videos that debunk dispensationalism and futurism, they don't have many views at all.
no,
They're hard to find.
we looked at it. There's only 10,000 like videos total on YouTube for like preterism or like there's only so many results. There's not that many. But then if you Google YouTube, I mean, if you YouTube, there's 5 billion results. So, you know.
There's a guy, Australian guy, I think his name is John Alley. He does a couple of good sermons on debunking dispensationalism. There's another guy named Jonathan Welton. He's a chubby, bald guy. He does a great job, especially on Matthew 24. He's got a whole series. He can be a little weird too.
Right. And that would be great. Like, he could use clips from these guys too, and he could just incorporate them in because fair use. He could use them as well if you had some for him. But I'm just saying, like, we got to make some videos, man. We got to stop this nonsense. It's up to us. I mean, is the world going to get any better if we don't try? I have the choice, don't I? Or am I completely controlled like a mind-controlled zombie? Did God make me do this right now? Did he make me just tell you, like, oh, we got to make some videos, bros?
It's too late to get into that conversation.
No, it's just me. I'm the one that wants to make the videos. But I want to make them so, like, they're quick, concise, and to the point, and it can't just be just straight up on preterism or straight on this or straight up on that. Like, that's the error that everybody's making. We have to take it from the beginning all the way to the end and go over all of it. Like, you can't just start it like Matthew or like whatever. You have to go all the way back to Genesis, start from all the way in the beginning, from the very first verse, and we have to plow through all of it in its proper order. Proper order. Not the order that we have in the Bible, because, you know, that's out of order too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't read it like a normal book. Most people read a book and they're like, oh, chapter 1. And then what happens in chapter 5 happens after chapter 1. But, you know, you might have a book that happens like, yo, we already read about this stuff. It's talking about like the same stuff all over again. But then you have another book that, you know what I'm saying? Like, wait, where is Nahum supposed to be? Is it where? I don't get it. Where does it go?
Yeah, but the Bible's a big book. What you need really is
a bunch of scrolls, really. It's not a book.
Right. But you need an overview.
Well, yeah, an overview, but you have to start from the beginning, make a foundation, and you have to set the foundation straight.
And I think you need to really look at the different types of language, the language types that's in there.
Yeah, you would do that as you went along, right? Or you could also set that out in the beginning. But I'm just saying, like, if we just made some videos and went again, like, oh my gosh, do you know how many these false doctrines we could slaughter together? We could be like the old crew, put back together all over again. Except not. Yeah, because, yeah, we're not being persecuted by Romans or nothing. Jews don't want to kill us. You know what I'm saying?
That's something also that's comforting.
I'll be Peter. You could be Paul. Go ahead. Sorry.
When you're partial or full or just preterist, that you don't have to worry or fear, oh, this great tribulation is fixing to come and it's going to be horrible and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like a huge burden off your shoulders. Like, what? Oh my God, I feel so much better now that I'm a full preterist. And that's what people actually will use against me. They'll be like, oh, you're just trying to take the easy way out. It's like, I'm not trying to take the easy way out. That is just what it is. Like, it's just so much better than what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I mean, even the scriptures themselves say, like, a much better promise. Yeah. A much better thing, right? A more better covenant.
The road is narrow.
It's very, very narrow. That's what I'm learning right now. It's so narrow. Like, do you see that little tiny line in between your picture, Stacy, and Matthew's picture on the icons? That's how narrow that is. It's a very, very tiny line. And it's very straight. That's the path you got to take. A very tiny, short, narrow path. Not to the left, not to the right. Just like Joshua said. Not to the left, not to the right, but right in the middle. Boom.
He did say that.
Full circle. Again.
It's a shame. People like Zach Bauer, he's got so many views.
I know, and that's exactly why we have to not take him down, but correct him. It would be much better if we had Zach Bauer on our side, wouldn't it? Yeah? I don't want to make an enemy out of him. I want him to join us. Right?
Your cup has to be empty in order to get it full. And so, like with PM, his cup was full. He wasn't interested.
Yep. Well, sometimes that happens. But also sometimes, even if a seed falls in concrete, it'll bust right on through.
I commented on Zach's, 2 comments actually on his video that I think Rob brought up, 7 scriptural proofs we're living in the last days.
Uh-huh.
So
did he respond?
No, he never. In the past, I've made a lot of comments on his videos, and once or twice he would answer me. I would hit him hard, and then he would just stop. He never held a conversation with me. I don't think he does that with anyone. But he does read and he does respond. You can tell. He writes to this guy. This guy writes, this presenter, meaning Zach, skipped Deuteronomy 28, 68, 69. The Hebrews, Israelites were scattered to the 4 corners of the earth because our ancestors, this guy's obviously a black guy, a black person who thinks he's a direct descendant of Israel. So Zach comes
like
back.
Hebrew roots.
Kind of like Hebrew roots, but more like an ethnic Hebrew roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's black Hebrew roots, is what
Right.
they call it.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, they're the black Hebrew Israelites, as they call themselves.
So listen to what Zach responds. He goes, your brain has been fed lies by a bunch of racists, black people. Skin color does not matter and changes over time. Skin color is a guarantee of nothing. Faith and obedience is what the Father looks for in his children. So I wrote to him, true, Zach, but that being the case, God will not save Israel, in quotes, based on ethnicity, because that's what he thinks. he's contradicting himself. So I write, he's no respecter of persons. There's, and then I put the verses there. There's 4 of them. So I said to him, so why do people believe Jews will get saved at the second coming just because they're Jews? They've been fed a bunch of lies by Zionist propagandists. I wrote a couple of more things, but he'll never respond to this because he doesn't like to debate on his blogs or on his videos. But he's got so many people commenting on here. Oh, look, Zach is on here. Oh yeah, you Stacy too. I didn't even know that.
Where? Okay. Which one was this one? What did I say? Remind me, because this was long ago.
It was just a week ago.
Yeah, Stacy has changed. Oh, a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Zach wrote, the apostles were living in the last days. Acts 2:15, for these people are not drunk, as you suppose. And then you replied, and knowledge shall be increased is the revealing of the mysteries of Christ. I guess debunking.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, because he said knowledge is like just internet and knowing things.
Yeah.
They love to do that. They're like, oh, look, with knowledge shall increase. Here we go. Just take that little tiny 3 words,
That's incredible.
completely and just rolling with it,
Rip it out of the context of the Bible.
Sure, I didn't see anywhere in the scriptures where it says, and thou shalt one day beeth on the interneteth, and thou shalt get fireballeth from the skyeth. No.
I had forgotten that was a Zach Bauer video because he's usually talking and he's in front of a camera, but this one had like pictures up, didn't it?
Yeah.
I forgot that was a Zach Bauer video.
Yeah, you guys want to have Zach Bauer on here?
Oh yeah.
Would you be, if we were? See, I mean, this is all public previously, so if somebody could hear this, they might warn him. Anybody want to do that for me? That'd be great. Let him know that I want to talk to him.
Right.
But not to trap him, not to trick him. But here's what I would do if he didn't know. I would just pretend that I wanted to hear him, even though I do want to hear him. So it's not really pretending. So I would want to hear what he has to say, but at the same time, I would have y'all on at the same time. And, for the most part, you'd be quiet while he explained his thing. And then I would let him in on the fact that, sorry, I booby-trapped him. And we're all
but if you remember...
But then it's like, yo, just chill, and we're going to just talk about it. Like, it's okay.
He's like PM, it's only on his terms, because remember, a master debater, which was Don Preston, had a dialogue with him, but he would only allow him to do it on his channel. He was only allowed to say, certain things and stuff like that. So he'll be very restrictive.
I'm sure. Yeah, he probably would play that card. But who knows? I could try. I can be charming at sometimes. I mean,
I think I watched that.
Those guys didn't like you guys very much, but they liked me.
Well, that's because you were quiet the whole time.
Well,
they
I have
loved
better tactics than you.
Mm-hmm.
My tactics are superior.
Well, only for a few moments, because when you were bragging how they were buddy with you, that was in the morning, and then that same evening, Rob says, "Oh, he got booted off too."
See, I don't know why he said that, because that's completely false.
I said, well,
at the same time, because he ended the entire hangout. I went right back.
No, this is the next day. You said I've been up with him for another time and stuff, and so that day that you were bragging to me, that evening, he said, "Oh, the third time." He said, "Nope, he's got booted off too."
Nope, didn't happen. Nope, I never got booted off.
They didn't want to talk to you anymore. Well.
No, I said
that they didn't want to talk to you anymore.
They will not talk to you anymore, not me. They'll talk to me. They won't talk to you.
So they're still talking with you. You're still buddies with them.
Yeah, I could get on right now with them if I wanted to. They're probably on right now. Not even kidding. I'm still cool with them. Like, I didn't do anything to upset them. I've been playing their game. And I know that they won't watch this video because they're better than that, you know? So I don't have to worry about them finding me out or anything. I'm not trying to like be mean to them. Like I'm not trying to infiltrate them. Just saying.
Right. The only game that you can play with them that they will allow you to play is stroke the ego.
Yeah, that's basically all I'm doing. But they're still in the loop and I still have them there. So, no, that's a false statement. I don't know why Rob told you that. Maybe he misunderstood what I said. But no, they didn't ever kick me out. They kicked all y'all out. They said that they did a complete 180 and they didn't want to talk about it at all ever again. They decided we're a cult and they don't like us, except for me. And
okay, so they'll want to talk with you on Goku and
yeah, they'll talk about all their stuff, and I'll just laugh with them, and I'll just agree with them on certain things. Other times they'll say something, and I won't say anything. And then I'm apparently in their mind, I'm agreeing by omission. Like I'm not saying anything against it, so therefore I must agree. See, that's my tactic.
Right.
I'm fighting them with their own fire, in a way. I'm hoping that one day I will plant a seed deep enough so that it'll break them. But, you know, we'll see. It's going to take time, obviously. But no, they didn't disqualify me. They disqualified you guys. Especially you, Stacy. I don't know why PM doesn't like you that
much. You picked that up, didn't you? No, right.
Didn't even do anything, like, at all. And trying to help a brother out, and then he had to attack full force.
I just asked questions. That's what I did, basically.
But yeah, good stuff. I mean, I don't know that, but you know, I'm down for the challenge, so I don't mind. I'll take a whack at Mr. Zachary Bauer. If I can get his name into one of my videos, I'll get 50,000 views. What's up now, subscribers? Want to join my side? Because I'm going to take your subscribers, Mr. Zachary Bauer. One way or another.
So you've decided now that you want subscribers, because I remember when I told you that what was your YouTube page that I would subscribe to, you said, well, I block people that try to subscribe to me, but now that you can't do that.
It's still on there. It's still on there, and it's gonna stay on there. It says I don't care about subscribers, and I don't care. So like now beat it. I don't care about subscribers. I don't. I still don't. But I'm gonna take yours because you're teaching false things. Like that's why. I'm not trying to hurt you as a person. You know, I need the truth to be taught, and the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You know, that's all. So once people, I mean, if I really did have the truth, right? Don't you think I should be able to use the scripture to back that up? Who's going to win the battle? The person with the false doctrine or the person with the true doctrine? The person with the true doctrine is going to win. So who's going to get the most subscribers? Me. I'm going to take them all, and I won't even care about them because, I don't know. I'm not in it for the money. I don't care. I'm in it for the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Well, gentlemen, I got to
go early. Trying to comment anybody. But yeah, it's going to be hard to get these people on because first off, that's like half the battle is even getting them on in the first place. I mean, like I can't even get friggin' Don Preston or like William Bell on with us. You know what happened to that? What happened to that? I can't even get those guys. So like, I mean, I don't even know how to contact half these clowns. Because, you know, they get zillions of messages a day. Which no doubt they do.
William Bell showed interest. It's just we never did pick back up, you know.
Right. We never did because of the whole for stupid stuff. But I mean, we could if Chris would just hit him up again. He's like, oh, he's got an email. Dude, he knows you. He doesn't know me. You got to get him. Right?
So why do you want to get William Bell or Don Preston on? You're better off getting Zach Bauer on.
Well, I have different reasons. I don't know what Stacy's reasons are for wanting him on, but I have specific reasons, which Stacy knows.
Well, okay.
I want his opinion on things.
Albert wants to do a litmus test to see what the angels of the sons of God versus the daughters of men are, and his view on Satan, so that he can, see where he's at. And this is a litmus test for Albert. He likes to do tests with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was wanting to do is to put together some type of presentation for preterism, so that you do have relevance there. So when you take futurism away from someone and there's this incredible void and depression and anxiety, that should never be. So if you're going to take something away, you need to replace it, and that's relevance. What are you to do today, type thing. And so he liked that. He perked up with that, and he said, let me know when you guys are ready.
Yep.
Right. It's the same thing with 70 AD. Like he would say himself, it's like, I'm trying to take away your doom and gloom and replace it with, it's already fulfilled. What's the problem? Like, calm down. Stop stressing yourself out. The world's not going to end tomorrow. Trust me, you'll feel a lot better once you know that the world isn't going to end at any second. Jesus could come back. Watch out. Watch out.
Another guy who's good is Steven Sizer. If you've seen him.
I think I might have heard of him, but I don't think I've actually seen.
Yeah, he has a couple of videos with some lectures on it, and he's pretty good.
Is he a sizable opponent?
He did a debate with some unknown dispensationalist guy, and he's very good.
You got my pun though, right?
No, say it again. I missed it.
You said Steven Sizer, and I said, is he a sizable opponent?
I get it now.
You guys.
All right. Well, anyway, I got to get to bed.
You're too tired to do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I will end this. Hold on.